He lived in shadow, in silence, in dirt, but his eyes never left the stars. The world tried to bury this orphan, but he chose to rise. His blade was not forged from steel, but from hunger, pain, and unbreakable will. He defied fate, challenged heaven itself, and became the brightest star in a sky of darkness. But can even a star burn forever, without losing something? Let's find out. The story begins with the protagonist thinking that even a star that doesn't shine at night above the clouds, but is hidden from human eyes at the very bottom, is still a star. If it wants to shine, it means that its heart still holds the light. At present, he came to the forge, looked at the sword with a smile, and said that it was cool no matter how he looked at it. He turned around, because someone said that she knew he would come here. He turned to the red-haired girl who said that and called her Zamina. She told Vlad with a displeased look that he had given up this activity. He, with a serious expression, said that she should stop annoying him, because this was one of his breaks. She asked if he knew that rumors had started circulating about him. He calmly looked at her and asked what rumors she was talking about. She looked around and quietly asked if he still heard voices when he held a stick or something. He remained silent, and because of this, she asked what sins he had committed in his past life. Who would have thought that lightning would strike him in the middle of the day, and black lightning at that? He should keep a low profile for a couple of days. They say that the new bishop is sensitive to signs and such. He used to be an inquisitor for heretics, so if he noticed anything suspicious, he would send you to the stake. He asked with a calm expression why she was telling him this. She became indignant because of this, and said that she was worried about him. She knew perfectly well that many people saw him get struck by lightning. They were already gossiping behind his back, so he should stop walking the streets. What if the church suddenly took him away? He continued to look at the sword and said that they wouldn't take him away for just looking at the sword for a while. Zamina sighed with displeasure and said that he was incredibly stubborn. If he wanted it, he should buy it. He calmly said that it was too expensive. She looked at him and said, "This is just an ordinary blacksmith shop in the alley. Maybe she can buy it?" MC was silent for a few seconds, then said, "It costs 5 gold coins." She looked surprised because of this and asked, 5 gold coins for a piece of metal? He looked away with a sad smile and said that he knew that with that money, he could not work for a whole year. The blacksmith came out of the building, very displeased, and loudly asked, "Did she call this a piece of metal? Those damn children should leave here immediately. This is not for people like them." She asked with a calm expression, "Then who is this for? It is sold in the slums. Who other than the residents will see it and buy it? Is he even crazy?" He became even more angry at them and asked, were they not taught any manners at all? She asked with a calm expression, "Why is he making a fuss over a sword that only a knight will use?" He insulted her loudly and said that it was because his days on this earth were numbered. Why doesn't she go back to her place and wash the dishes? She got angry because of his insults and asked loudly what he just said. She was, after all, a grown lady. Vlad started to lead her away and said that she should calm down. They were already leaving. She asked him to let her go with a displeased look and said that she didn't even say anything. He drove them away with a displeased look, and when they left, he said that this fool was full of malice. He used to feed her so much. He was still angry about what happened, but he turned around and looked at the ground. He noticed deep marks near the sword and said that it seemed like he had been standing there for a long time. Even the ground had dented. He should have thought about making ends meet instead. If he kept dreaming about such things, it would only get harder. He knew very well that the children of the slums would never get out of here, so he will sell the sword to someone who can benefit from it. He can't let his latest work rot in a place like this. He and his sword shine in a place like this. The center of the northern economy, the beacon of the northern region, representing the strength of the Bayezid family, Sora. It is only natural that in such a bright place, there are also dark shadows. The slums where the dirtiest things happen. In the cat house, a man pulled a girl by the hair, loudly insulted her and asked if she dared to deceive him. She tried to resist and asked loudly, how could she deceive him? He asked loudly with a displeased look, he has been working as a mercenary for 20 years. How dare she slip him a fake? The protagonist passed by them and said that it was noisy here as always. He noticed, loudly called him a candlestick, and said that he came just in time. He must bring the madam here. He said with a calm expression that in order to meet their madam, one must pay in gold coins, not silver. He asked loudly with a very displeased expression on his face, what gold are you talking about? If madam is not here, then he should bring his mother. He looked at him silently with a very serious expression on his face. The mercenary asked loudly with a very angry expression on his face, time candles, that's a scam, right? Why does it burn out when he hasn't done anything yet? He sighed calmly and asked, how can he do anything in 5 minutes? He can go to his wife since he has no money. He became very angry about this and asked loudly, what did he just say? He calmly said that he was making too much noise. Maybe he wants to test it? He took one candle from the box, pointed his finger to the side and asked, can't he see the clock? They will see if the candle burns out for 5 minutes or not. If not, then he can do whatever he wants with this woman. The mercenary asked with an angry expression on his face. Why should he listen to a swindler? He said with a very serious expression that he would repeat it again. They should check it. However, if the candle would burn for the full 5 minutes, he would beat him up very badly. The mercenary looked at him with a very scared look and wondered what was wrong with his eyes. The MC lit a match on the floor and asked which one of them was the cheater now. He lit a candle, and the rest of the customers discussed what was happening and watched it closely while they silently waited for the result. When the candle went out, the man turned around and looked at the clock standing next to him. He wondered with a very worried look, since what time did they start counting? He turned around because he called this mercenary and immediately got hit in the face with a stick. From such a strong blow, his nose started bleeding and he fell to the floor. He told this freak with a serious expression on his face that it was exactly 5 minutes there. After that, he kicked him, and he fell to the floor in the next room. He went inside, closed the door behind him, and said with a serious expression that he was finished. The mercenary raised his hand with a frightened look and loudly asked him to wait. He did not listen to him, started hitting him with a stick, and said that he wanted to deceive them. What kind of mercenary is he, with such a big belly? Earlier, he asked him to bring his mother. He should be more tactful with people without the participation of mothers. The mercenary screamed loudly in pain after the blows, and he ordered him to shut up. After some time, Vlad said that it seemed that someone had damaged the candles. They were not 5 minutes. He does understand what he just said, right? He called Jorge, who was eating his breakfast, and said that someone had damaged the candles. He did not react to this in any special way and agreed with him. A girl came up to them and loudly asked who dared to ruin their precious candles. He looked at her and said that this needed to be found out. She loudly agreed and said that he must find the culprit. He pointed at himself with a confused look and asked how he would find the criminal. The madam of the establishment smiled like a rose. Marcella said loudly that she had already found it. He was surprised by this and asked who did it. She said with a smile that she was just joking a little. She wanted to deceive those drunks and get more money. After that, he went up the stairs and asked, does it mean that he beat up that man for nothing? Although, what should he, an ordinary worker, do now? He met a guy who said with a smile that he heard about yesterday and was proud of him. He did a great job. Did something happen while he was gone? He put his hand on his shoulder and asked, did he learn a few secrets about selling candles yesterday, right? They need money, but now they have no money at all. The protagonist, with a serious expression on his face, asked Burley what he wanted from him. He immediately walked away from him to the guys who were standing nearby and said that he should not be so nervous. He said with a smile that he was not asking him to give it to him. He was offering him a good deal. He would give him something in exchange for money. He grabbed the boy with the bruises on his face by the hair and said that he was a stupid, clumsy, and incompetent pickpocket. He recognized him, didn't he? He was willing to give it back for 40 pieces of silver. That was a good deal. He looked at them with a serious expression and asked what was wrong with his fingers and toes. Burley said with a smile that if it had been cut off, he wouldn't have called him. He was just teaching him a lesson. On the whole, he was all right. He threw the bag of money on the floor with a disgruntled look, which made him happy, and he said loudly that he knew he could be relied on. He said that next time he could just kill him instead of looking for him. He started to leave with the others and said that he shouldn't say that. They were bandits, not murderers. He said with a disgruntled look that they were cheating a colleague of his own family. Burley continued to leave and said that he told them that it would work. After all, he was in charge of the stray children. He looked at the boy with a serious expression and called out to Ned. He asked him for forgiveness with a scared look and said that he was trying to be careful. MC with a serious expression was silent for a few seconds and asked if he had any broken bones. He refused, and then he said that in that case he should leave now before he did it. He agreed and thanked him for that. He walked away with a dissatisfied look and said that just like that, he was further away from the 5 gold coins again. After a while, the whale hunter from Captain Hoover's family showed his hand and said with a smile that he was lucky, however, because he did not lose his fingers. What happened to him was a lesson for everyone. By the way, he heard that they argued over the candles. Was that true? Vlad asked if he knew about it yet. He continued writing something in the book and said that rumors spread quickly, but no one seemed to believe it. Madame makes candles, but Marcella would not do that, right? He said with a serious expression that it seemed so to him too, and Jorge knew about it too. They would not do that. He said with a serious expression that, however, if they did it, then they must have a reason for it. There is a 90% chance that they need the money and quite urgently. He must be careful. The organization might urgently need to get money only in one case. He immediately realized that he meant the war against the other organization. 5 heads who ruled the slums of Sor. Jorge, the pig butcher, the black bear, the dice player, the whale hunter, Captain Hoover, and the money bug, one-armed Jack. All the darkness of life, silently hidden in the shadows, would find him, as it did now. After some time, Jack entered the cat house with a crowd of people and asked with a serious look, "Where is its leader?" They looked at each other with a serious look, and the protagonist thought that accidents happen unexpectedly, and destruction is unnoticed. The money bug came here in person? So this is preparation for war? One of the crowd cried out loudly and asked, "Did he hear what the boss just said? Where is his boss now?" He looked at him with a sullen look and said that he was a simple candle seller, so he did not know. He got angry because of this and began to insult him. He punched and broke the candle box and said loudly that if he didn't know, he should go and find it. This caused all the candles to fly in different directions. Everyone who saw this was very surprised and watched what was happening intently. He took a stick and started picking up the candles from the floor and said that all the expensive candles were broken. It seemed that there would be no more sales today. The guy got indignant about this and asked, "Does this impudent person not understand anything at all?" He stopped next to him and said that he should put his feet up. He looked at him with a very displeased expression on his face and asked what he said. He looked at him with an angry look and said that he told him to put his feet up. He got angry about this, insulted him loudly, and swung his leg to hit. The MC looked at this with a serious expression on his face and thought that the fight was a microcosm of war. An appointed battlefield, planned circumstances, and complete determination. He hit him with a stick in the legs with a sharp movement, which made him lose his balance and start to fall. He immediately delivered another blow, which knocked out his teeth, and thought that this was the only way to be sure of victory. What happened was very surprising to everyone who was nearby and saw what happened. He stood over this guy, pointed the stick at him, and thought that the invariable rule of the alleys, the winner is on top and the loser is on the bottom. The other bandits got angry because of what happened and loudly asked how dare he do this in front of them. Jack raised his hand with a hook and said that they should stop. They listened to him, and he said that he liked him. He only has one arm, so he hoped that he would be understanding. Vlad looked at him with a calm expression on his face and said that he did not discriminate against cripples. He started laughing loudly because of this and called him crazy. He approached him and with a frightening smile said that they would talk in private later. Whose tramp did he take again? Judging by what he doesn't know, they died quickly. Jorge came to them and attracted their attention by calling loudly to the money bug and asking what was going on here. He should have warned them about his arrival, then he would have fried some meat for him. He looked at him with a small smile and said that it seemed to him that they were not that close. He came closer and asked if, since they had guests, maybe they should go upstairs. Jack refused the meat with a smile and asked if he had any good alcohol. He said with a serious expression that Marcella did not disappoint in matters of hospitality. He also became serious and said that in that case, he would not mind trying. They left after him, and the protagonist sighed and said that he almost died. After some time, he collected all the broken candles in a box and asked how many he had broken. Jack came back, called him a rising star, and said that his boss had not refrained from complimenting him. Apparently, he had an excellent sense of smell. When he got tired of the burning smell, he could come to work for him. A guy like him could be useful. He said with a calm expression on his face that he liked it here too, because he was fed, paid, and given a place to sleep. He laughed out loud because of this and said that they could offer him that too. He threw him a gold coin and said what kind of broken candles they were. He caught the coin with a little surprise and said that it was too much. The money bug said with a smile that he should work for him and that he would give him as much money as he wanted. He left with the others and said loudly that it was very tasty here. Now they were leaving. MC looked at him and thought that he looked satisfied. Maybe they could come to an agreement? Ximena stood on the second floor, called his name and said that Jorge was calling him. After that, he sat down next to him. He gave him the dagger and said that he wanted to give it to him later. But circumstances forced him to do it now. He should always keep it with him. He looked at the worried people around him and thought that from the atmosphere in the room, he could tell that his conversation with Jack was a disaster. He said that he might not sell candles anymore. He asked, then what should he do? Collect money or patrol the area? He said with a serious look that they had received a tip that the one-armed Jack was attracting people from the outside. Most likely, mercenaries who used to be knights. Vlad asked with a serious look, are they the same as him? Having received a positive answer, he thought that the money bug had an incredible number of people. However, even he had a hard time defeating the former knight Jorge. After all, a flock of sheep is no match for a wolf. However, if you bring in swordsmen of the same level as the knights, the balance will be upset. He said that they are currently at a disadvantage, so they need him. Soon he will give him his first task. He remembered Harvin and thought that he was a cripple without fingers, even the ability to walk. Thanks to his sharp mind, He studied language and mathematics and began to work for Captain Hoover. Looking at him, he realized that it is important to study hard because the engagement will lead to the top. He remembered that earlier, when he was practicing fencing, he heard a voice that said that he should make the angle between his elbows smaller when swinging. He said with a slightly worried look that he hears it with every swing. He remembered the past and thought that a month ago, after being struck by pitch-black lightning, he began to hear a voice. The whisper of a demon begins to sound every time he picks up a sword or something similar. He said with a displeased look that, before buying a sword, he needs to buy holy water. He thought he shouldn't pay attention to it. They say the more he answers, the more that voice will stick. He has to concentrate and just try. He has to concentrate all his thoughts and strength, and then strike. He swung his sword, and before he struck, the voice said he should bring his hands together. Thanks to that advice, he struck hard and thought everything had become different. Before, he just swung, but now it was more like the way of the sword. What kind of voice had entered his head? Sometime later, at night, the man was wiping blood from his sword and said that age cannot be fooled. Now, the winter wind chills to the bone. He heard approaching footsteps and said with a small smile that he understood everything. However, is he an idiot or on purpose? He doesn't know who he is, but he has to come out to him. The protagonist standing in the forest asked if he was Sir Stanga. He went to him, agreed, and said that it turned out that he was the guide from the slums. A blonde man with blue eyes, people thought he was a nobleman. He took out a letter and said that his boss asked him to deliver this. He started reading it and asked with a small smile, "Did the competitors hire a man who used to be a knight?" Now it was clear why they needed his help. He said with a calm expression that in that case he would take him. They should be there in 2 days, closer to night. He started to leave, and Stanga sighed and said that he wasn't sure about following someone so stupid. He turned to him and said that he could at least take him. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that you can't be smart about anything if he does such stupid things. If he says that this is the wrong road on the way, then he will kill him. He reacted calmly to this and moved on and said that he should keep up because he didn't want to fail his first mission. He felt a little embarrassed by his reaction and wondered if he had intentionally put on a threatening look, but he just ignored him. He smiled and thought that now it was clear why Jorge liked him. He was worth the effort put into him. After a while, they stopped in a small cave and made a fire. MC was staring at him. He noticed this and asked why he was looking like that. Was this his first time seeing a retired knight? He said that it was the first time he had seen such a person up close. He asked what village he lived in. He didn't answer this question and asked, by the way, where was he from? Stanga said that he was from Dikia. He chuckled because of this and said that it was a real city. He got angry because of this and said that he shouldn't act like that because he could cut him in half. He took out the meat with a calm expression and said that he asked him not to say such terrible things. He had heard that Knight's jokes were a threat. He was a little surprised when he saw fresh meat and asked if he would share with him. He said that he had not been given any more. Didn't he have any food with him? He took out some pieces of dried meat and said that he had some. Vlad started roasting the meat over the fire and he looked at it intently and thought that it smelled so delicious. He called him and asked if he wanted to know anything from him. He looked at him and asked why he suddenly asked that question. Steina said with a small smile that for a piece of meat, he would answer one question. Such an opportunity does not present itself every day. He was eating his meat and asked how much meat he needed. If he wanted, he could just ask. He got angry because of this and said that he actually had honor. Knights get everything in exchange for something. He looked at him calmly and said that he was retired now. He said that even now he still adheres to this rule. He then calmly asked him his name and age, which he quickly answered, and after that he asked if he at least knew how to use aura. He smiled at this question and said that now it was clear that he was only innocent in appearance. Not all knights knew how to use aura, and using aura in real combat was completely different. The protagonist asked with a serious expression, so could he or not? He still didn't want to answer this question. Then he had an idea. He handed him all his meat and said that he could take it all. Stanga thought about it and said with a smile that a knight should only take what he could repay. He took out his sword from its sheath and said that there were times when he did what he wanted. However, for the past few days, he had only eaten jerky. He looked at what was happening very closely and wondered if he could really look at this. He stood up, held the sword in front of him, and looked at it with one eye. This caught his attention, and he asked why he closed his left eye. He did not answer this question. Began to concentrate, and thought that he needed to generate peace from the depths of his soul. Energy began to appear around his sword, and he said that he should look closely. This is the essence of knights. He opened his eye, filled with energy against the background of the moon, and said that this is what is called an aura. After some time, they reached the city, and Stanga said that it was disgusting. He felt like a vagabond. MC said that it was good that they were dirty. After all, in this place it was better to look like a vagabond than a knight. He said with a displeased look that he was not talking about appearance, but about condition. He has a knight's honor. Why should he go through this hole? He said with a calm look that he was told to secretly escort him, so you can't go through the main gate. They had to move on, and when they got there, he would prepare a bath for him. They moved on, and he looked around and said it was so quiet here it was even alarming. He walked ahead and said it was because it was night. They noticed something on the street, and he asked with a serious expression on his face, "Was it always like this?" He looked at it with a surprised expression on his face too, and said, "It wasn't." They looked at the many dead people lying on the ground, and Vlad said it looked like they had already fought. They needed to split up. He would tell them where the back entrance was that only their people knew about. Stanga turned around and asked, "What about him then?" He ran ahead and said he would go through the front entrance. It was better to split up now. They would meet later. He ran very quickly to the right building and became very worried when he saw the mess in the cat house. Marcella was bandaging Jorge's wounds with a sad expression, who said that it was good that he had returned in one piece. The money bug had attacked them first. It was obvious that those with money were on a completely different level. He looked at them with a worried expression and asked if they were okay. He said that it had been a long time since he had encountered someone on the night level, which was why it had ended like this. However, he did bring him in the first place. Right? The protagonist agreed and said that the front entrance was being watched, so he told him to go through the back entrance. He should have arrived by now. He said with a serious expression that they would attack the money bug tomorrow and finish it this time. By the way, is he okay? He agreed and said that he seemed like a good person. Jorge asked if he had lost weight. In order to live long, you have to take care of yourself. He agreed and said that he also knew how to use aura. He was confident that they would succeed tomorrow. This news shocked him, and he heard footsteps and said that it seemed like he was already here. He called him by name and asked, did he just say that he used aura? He was a little embarrassed by this, agreed, and said that he saw it himself. Jorge immediately took his sword and said that he should stand behind him. Stanga does not know how to use aura. Because of what MC heard, he was very surprised and asked what he meant. He came out of the door. His clothes and sword were covered in blood, and he said that he settled quite far away. They had not seen each other for a long time. Earlier, this unknown man killed the real Stang before meeting him in the forest. He stood in the room with a smirk and said that he had changed a lot. Jorge looked at him with a displeased expression and asked why he came now. He was a little surprised when the man said that Count Gaidar had passed away. He started pouring alcohol into the glass and said that due to some complications it had not been announced, but that everyone would find out about it soon. He raised the glass and said that they should drink to poor Count Gaidar. He became very angry with him, insulted him loudly, and ran to attack. He struck a very strong blow with his sword as soon as he ran close enough, but he couldn't hit. The man was standing behind him and said that they should also drink to the new Count Sigmund. Jorge turned to him with a very angry expression on his face and called Godin. He ran up to him very quickly, and they crossed swords. He looked at him with a serious expression on his face and said that the new Count's first order had demanded the immediate return of the deserting knight. He said loudly with an angry expression on his face that Sigmund was not his master. He continued to hold back his attack and said that the Count had not expected him to obediently return. He had not even counted on it. After that, they started fighting each other, destroying everything around them with their blows. Vlad ran up to Marcella, started to take her away, and said that it was too dangerous here. They went into another room where Burley noticed them, loudly called his name and asked what was that noise. He called him loudly and said that he should call everyone here. He was about to say something else, but at that moment a strong blow threw Jorge back, and he flew next to him. They were all very surprised when they saw his body flying next to him. Godin, who attacked him, asked with a serious expression, "Is he still making naive decisions?" He fell on his back from the second floor and the worried people loudly called for the leader. He was still conscious and started to get up while he was watching this from the second floor. Someone threw a dagger at him, but he immediately noticed it and blocked the attack with his sword. The one who did it turned out to be the protagonist, and they looked at each other with a serious expression. He did not get distracted by him and jumped to the first floor. He noticed this, loudly called Jorge, and warned him of the danger. He gathered all his strength and at the last moment managed to jump aside from the sword strike. Godin looked at him with a serious expression and asked why he didn't just obey the order. He said with a serious expression that he was a human and did not obey the orders of trash. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that he was wrong because first of all, he was a knight. He saw the guys who were holding swords next to him and said that the night was dragging on. He closed his eyes and said that now he wanted to rest. MC began to go down the stairs to them and became very worried when he saw that he began to use aura. He loudly asked him not to do it, But he didn't listen to him and released a very bright energy. He closed his eyes after that and asked with a surprised look, what was that anyway? He looked around and saw that everyone around him was very badly injured. He got very angry because of that, and then looked to the other side and called out to Jorge. He fell silent when he saw something, and remembered the past, and thought that he was the first one to extend his hand to him while he was in the dirt of the alley. He was the first one to teach him, and the strongest one he had ever seen. Quietly, the blue moonlight appeared and villainously smashed his world into pieces. He got very angry because of that, and grabbed the sword from the floor and ran forward and tried to attack despite the voice asking him to stop. He missed his strike, and a little surprised Godin wondered how a street boy could know the way of the sword. He looked at him with a calm expression and said that it was impressive. Vlad ran towards him and loudly wished him death. He didn't have time to strike because he kicked him in the stomach very hard and threw him away. Because of this, he flew across the room and he looked at it from the side and thought that it was innate. He can't believe that he instinctively turned to parry the blow. He held his stomach after that strong blow, and the voice said that he had to breathe. He can't pass out now. He looked at him with a calm expression and thought that it was pointless to ruin his promising future. Even if he comes back with a sharper sword, he remembered the past when Jorge said that it was always nice to see such potential. He smiled because of this, called him and said that a knight takes only if you can give something in return. He looked up at him and asked what he meant. He threw him 2 pieces of meat and said that his name was not Stenga and that he was not 42 years old. He had taken too much from him, so he was returning it. However, he would take it. It was an acceptable price and his right as the winner. The protagonist looked at him with a serious expression on his face and said that he would kill him. Godin started to leave and said that in this state, he could not even ask for compensation for the pieces of meat. He became even more angry, called him loudly by name, and said that he would kill him. He must wait for this. After some time, Zemina helped him walk along the street of this city. His stomach hurt very much because of the last blow and he fell to his knees. Earlier, as he sat in the destroyed cat house, Marcella came up to him and told him that he should get up. Or did he want to die here? He did not answer her and continued to look down with a sad expression on his face. She slapped him hard across the face with her palm to bring him to his senses and said that he should pull himself together. Does he know the difference between the people living in the city center and the losers from the slums? The main difference is opportunities. They are able to get up even if they fell once, because they can afford it. He should look back and then he will see the result of this failure. They die if they fall once. This is their fate, so he should not miss the only opportunity. Currently, Zemina looked at him with a worried look and asked if he was okay. Maybe they should go slower? He refused and said that she should go further because it was impossible for everything to end like this. A guy with a sword noticed them and said loudly that he found him. Jorge's favorite is here. MC held his aching stomach with one hand. The other grabbed her hand and said loudly that they need to run. They were running away from a crowd of armed guys and thought that their nest was destroyed. Even though they were just chicks, it was time for them to soar through the skies on their own. This group of guys lost them and asked where they had gone. Had they gone into another alley? They needed to check every nook and cranny. He wouldn't skimp. The guy whose teeth he had knocked out earlier said with an angry expression that he would make him pay for his shame. He said loudly that they should split up. He couldn't get far. They were hiding in a building, Zemina holding her breath out of fear, and he was holding the dagger Jorge had given him. He thought that if things continued like this, they wouldn't be able to escape. He called her by name and said that she should leave when things calmed down. She asked worriedly, what would happen to him? He said that they needed to get out of here somehow. They were close, so it was dangerous to move around together. She refused worriedly and said that she wanted to stay with him. He said that she had promised Marcella that she would only help him find a good place and then leave. She had to go back or to Harvin before dawn. She said with a displeased look that she had already said that she didn't want that. He said with a serious expression that she wasn't listening to him at all. Did it look like he could protect her? She was about to say something with a sad expression, but their attention was drawn to the fact that the one who lived there came up to them and asked who was there. She immediately picked up the knife that was lying on the floor, turned around, and they saw a man holding a lamp in his hand. The blacksmith looked at them with a displeased look and asked what they were doing there. She looked at him with a very tense expression and said loudly to the old man that he should stand still. He looked at them with a calm expression and asked what was wrong with them. They were the ones who broke into his house. She said loudly with a serious expression that she had told him not to move or she would hit him. They looked at each other in silence for a few seconds, and he said that he understood what situation they were in, so she could lower her weapon. Zemina thought about it for a few seconds and said loudly that he should give them the sword. The old man was surprised by this and asked what she said. She said loudly that she meant the sword that he had hanging. It was not safe outside the city now either. She was not joking, he should give it to them. Vlad looked at her with a serious expression, called her name, and said that she should put the knife down. She did not listen to him and loudly demanded that he bring the sword. The blacksmith looked at her and thought that this is what the slums are really like. The true nature of people who need to take something from others in order to survive. He was the same as them. It seemed that now it was her turn. He said with a serious expression that it was sad. He did not have time to finish because she squeezed the knife in her hand and screamed loudly. The main character was very worried about this. He reached out his hand to stop her and called her by name. The blacksmith closed his eyes with a calm expression on his face, and she unexpectedly cut off her hair. She started crying, held out the hair and said that it wasn't enough, but she would definitely repay him later. She begs him to give him this sword. The blacksmith looked at the hair lying on the ground, then looked at him and asked, "Are they going to leave?" He agreed with a serious expression on his face. He looked at them and thought that the only thing he dreamed of doing in his life, but he could not. However, this guy can handle it. But he has not yet spread his wings. He made a dissatisfied look and said that they, the youth, are making everything difficult for him. He turned around and said that they should follow him. After a while, they went outside. The blacksmith was dragging a cart with garbage, and Zemina was helping him and said that it stinks very much here. He said that this was their only way. There were several armed guys standing on their way. One of them called him and asked what he was doing here so late. He looked at them with a slightly worried look and wondered if these freaks were even waiting here. The guy looked at the contents of the cart behind him and asked if he was throwing out the trash at such an hour. He made a displeased expression and said loudly that they had blocked the whole alley with their fights. The forge was almost bursting from the accumulated trash that he still couldn't throw out. He looked at his assistant and asked who it was. Wasn't he the only one working? He said loudly that he was too tired to cope on his own, so he gave her some bread for her help. Or did they want to throw out this trash themselves? The boy came up to her and said that he was the only blacksmith in the area, so everything was fine, but he thought he should check who it was. He lifted her hood with his sword and said with a serious expression that she shouldn't move unless she wanted him to cut something off. He cut Zemina's hood with a swing of his sword, and she made a face and said how hard it was to make a living. Because she had cut off her hair, he didn't recognize her and said that they could move on. The blacksmith looked at him and asked what they were even trying to find. He looked at him and said that they were looking for the blonde man Jorge was taking care of. They couldn't find him. He was still looking at him and asked if they could go. The boy said that he would have to make sure. He called one of his comrades and said that he should check the carriage. They were all very surprised by what they heard and began to worry. The guy said that, however, they should not do it here, they should move after him. The old man thought with a dissatisfied and worried look. Do they need to go somewhere? They cannot go somewhere after him. They walked away together, with this guy. Walked away from the rest, he began to examine the contents of the cart and said that they had a lot of things. His attention was drawn to the stick that MC had practiced with earlier. She began to panic very much because of this, and he looked at her with a serious expression on his face silently. He squeezed his spear in his hand and said that he asked them not to be angry because this was his job. He stuck his spear into the garbage lying on the cart, which made them very worried. He deliberately missed and said that he heard that Harvin launched a ship and everyone went there. They think that he has some reason for this. He should just keep it in mind. He pulled out his spear and said that they can go on. They went further, and he said that this was for the 40 silver coins that his brother owed him. Vlad heard him, called him Otar, and thanked him for it. After some time, they reached the right place, and the blacksmith said that they had finally arrived. From here, the garbage falls outside the city. Zemina could hardly hold back her tears, said goodbye to him, and said that she hoped that everything would be fine with him. After that, they threw a pile of garbage along with him into this hole. The old man with a slightly sad expression on his face thought that the star he was holding in his hands was what the old man had created, putting his dreams into it, and it was paid for with the girl's tears. After some time, the main character went into a cave, made a fire, took the sword in his hands and asked if anyone could hear him. The voice in his head agreed, and then he asked who he was. The voice answered that he did not know that. He said that he knew so much about swords, but did not even know who he was. It seems like it's for the best, they can help each other. He will help him get his memory back, and he should be his sword. He doesn't care even if he is the devil. He is only afraid of the fact that he is nothing. The voice agreed to this and said that he will tell him about his sword. After some time, in the military camp, the second son of the Bayezid family, Joseph put a chess piece on the map and said that it was too easy. A man named Jagger entered his room and told his master that he had just returned. He looked at his expression and said that something seemed to be bothering him. Is he worried about something? He said with a serious look that it was too easy. He came to his desk and said that the monster hunt was going smoothly. There were few victims. They were all mercenaries. He asked, aren't deserters considered missing? A steady result with no deserters. Everyone will doubt his ability to command. Father and vassals, that's understandable. And of course, Rudiger, his half-brother on his father's side. He thought that at this rate, it would be the end. If he didn't become the next count, then his half-brother would obviously. The Bayezid clan, famous for its army, had already left its mark on history. His father and his blood brothers were vying for the post. He said with a calm expression that he didn't have enough swordsmen except him. He stood in front of him and told the Lord that he still had something to inform him about. He gave him permission and he said that there was one suspicious soldier. He asked with a calm expression, was this his brother's spy? Jaeger said that wasn't the case. He would understand when he saw it. After that, they came to the place where the dead goblins were hanged, and Joseph said that it was disgusting. He was most likely killed by a child who had just started holding a sword. He stood nearby and told the Lord that he should take a look at this too. He looked at some more goblins and said, they are all the same. However, these cuts are getting better. He was surprised because he realized something and thought that they were the same, but still different. He called him and said that he hoped that he did not want to say that one person did this. He agreed and told the master that they found these yesterday and those a month ago. He was surprised because of this and thought that this was impossible. Such progress in just a month? He turned to him and asked with a surprised look, who did this? At the same time, a group of warriors were fighting against the goblins. One of them said loudly that the line must tighten. They cannot let them get away. One of them killed the monster with his goblin spear and said that the end is finally near. They must get rid of these monsters. The rest of the warriors looked at him with surprised faces and could not say anything. He looked at them and did not notice the huge monster that was standing behind him. It struck very hard with its club and killed that warrior. The others looked at the monster with a confused look, who screamed loudly and ran towards them. It ran up to him very quickly and started attacking them. They were surprised by this and asked loudly, where did he come from? He broke through the fifth group. They need to retreat. Sir Borden was standing next to them on a horse and asked loudly, what were they doing here? Should they move forward quickly? Or do they want to be paid for this? They said loudly that they had not heard that there would be hobgoblins there. They should hire mercenaries instead, or he could fight back himself. He started to take out his sword with a displeased look, a serious expression on his face, but stopped when he noticed the body of the warrior who was thrown towards him. After that, he looked at the very angry monster, who was growling angrily with rage. He became scared at what he saw and put his sword back into its sheath. MC walked out of the crowd of monsters and calmly walked towards the monster that had its back to him. They saw him and loudly called him Praying Riemann. He said with a calm expression that he would take on this monster. Immediately after that, he took out his sword, threw the sheath on the ground, and ran towards the hobgoblin very quickly. It noticed this, but he was faster and stabbed it with his sword. He looked at the wound left on the monster's body and thought that it was a weak blow. It started to attack, and he heard a voice that said that he should dodge. He noticed the hobgoblin's blow and jumped to the side at the last moment. He stopped and said, with a dissatisfied look, that he failed again. The voice called him an idiot and asked, can't he even do what it tells him? He thought with a dissatisfied look that you need to be a genius to do everything right away as told. He said that he was just taking the long way. It ran towards him and screamed loudly in anger. It began to strike many fast blows with its club, but he closely watched its movements and easily dodged these attacks. It raised its club, screamed loudly in anger, and struck a very strong blow. Because of this, the snow flew into the air, but it noticed that there was no one there. Vlad stood behind the monster and thought that this time he would definitely defeat it. At the same time, Jaeger told him about the Praying Riemann, and Joseph said that he should immediately find out about this person. He agreed with the master with a calm expression. He continued to examine the killed goblins and thought that there was no point in this. Crooked, sloppy blows, just think. He walked the path of the sword in a month. At the same moment, he struck a very strong blow with his sword and cut off the hobgoblin's head. After that, they began to collect the bodies of the defeated monsters in carts and said that there was only trash here. He thought that there would be at least something good here because of the hobgoblins. The guy named Goith said loudly to the captain with a happy look that he had done a great job this time too. The protagonist said with a calm expression that he should stop talking and load up those he had killed. He said with a smile that he had already done it. Who would dare touch what was his anyway? By the way, they were almost done. What were they going to do now? Did he need anything else with his swordsmanship and brains? He didn't get to finish because he said that he doesn't work with scammers. He looked at him with a sly smile and said that he doesn't have a mercenary badge. He knows a man who is very good at forging. He turned to him, called his name, and with a serious expression said that he must know that such talk kills. He thought that if it was a warning, then he would just warn him, but if it was a threat, then he would kill. Goethe was confused by this and said that he said it for his own good. It's a shame that he makes so little money with such skills. MC with a serious expression said that he should shut up and continue cleaning, or he would say goodbye to his head. He agreed, started to leave and said that he was leaving already. He thought with a displeased look that sometimes something needs to be done with him. He started to walk into the forest. The other warriors noticed and asked, "Is Riemann going to pray again?" He was doing what he always did. He stopped, knelt down on one knee and put his sword in front of him. They looked at it from the side and said that it looked really cool. Maybe he really was a nobleman. He was definitely not their equal. Vlad, looking very displeased, quietly said that he couldn't cut that monster with one blow. The voice called him an idiot and said that he had said that the one blow, one kill principle depends on the element of surprise. He quietly asked, "What does that even mean?" The voice said that when he takes up the sword, the enemy does this, and he must do otherwise. He continued to kneel down with a displeased look and asked, how is he supposed to understand that? He asked, does he still not understand that? After all, he says, first this, then something else happens. He didn't understand what he meant at all, and the other warriors began to pray, looking at him. After a while, the protagonist sat at the table, took a spoon with food and asked what kind of meat it was and was it even that? Goethe ate calmly and said that he did not know. What difference did it make if it was free? It was hard to find a place where workers were fed. The other warrior said that it was Bayezid after all. Exactly. It was salty, but it was better than nothing. He started to leave and said that then they could eat. They looked at him and asked, is he going to the priest again? Maybe he should start praying too? He would never be like him. After some time, the priest Andreas called him Riemann and greeted him. He bowed, also called him by name and asked how he slept. He said that everything was as usual. He had heard that he had also prayed last night. He must have been quite cold. He was a little unhappy with what he had heard from the voice, but he smiled and said that he did not know that, because he was in the arms of God. The priest laughed and said that he looked more like a priest than he did. A boy in a church robe came up to him and told his father that the food was ready. He turned to him with a smile, thanked him and said that he understood him. He was just about to have breakfast. He could join him. MC was confused by this and said that he did not come to eat. This did not bother Andreas at all. He sat down next to them and said that they should pray. They all folded their hands in prayer, and he said that they were grateful to the Almighty for this food. They hoped that he would send them strength with this food and help them do good to others. He looked at him and thought that he was such a sincere believer. Even in such a terrible place, he did not lose faith. It was necessary to guide this young man, whose hands will always be bloody in battle. This must be the destiny that God has bestowed on him. He finished reading the prayer and said that they could eat. He looked at him, agreed, and thanked him for it. Vlad looked at the food and thought that it was rare wheat bread and soup, real food. Andreas said that he wanted to talk about his swordsmanship. He had heard a lot about it, but it seemed that Sir Joseph knew too. 2 days ago, he came and asked about him. He was a little embarrassed by this and asked what of it. He looked at him with a kind smile and said that he had given a recommendation for him. He also said that he was looking forward to being promoted. The Bayezids are a famous family in the north. Just being able to work for them gives much better conditions, and he has the right to do so. After some time, he again pretended to pray with his sword in his hands and said that things were bad. Apparently he was too noticeable. The voice said that they had no choice. His skill could only be mastered through real combat experience. The bigger problem was his friendship with the priest. Now he's finally convinced that he's not an evil being? The protagonist said that he'd heard that he was respected and had great divine power, enough to become a bishop. If he didn't see anything in him, now he seemed sure of it. Anyway, maybe we should run away from here? The voice said that they would turn a blind eye to the fake name if he was capable enough. He said with a slightly worried look that they would eventually find out that he had killed a mercenary who was stealing. Then he would be tried for both the fake name and the murder. The voice jokingly called him a villain, and he pointed at the sword with a displeased look and said that he was his accomplice. He said that it seemed like it would be better for him to run. Self-defense could only be done in front of witnesses. MC, with a calm expression, said that they would then escape at night. If he took Gaitha with him, he would be able to get a fake badge. The voice said that it seemed like it might be really difficult. He felt a presence and said that someone was coming. It was a skilled knight. He grabbed the sword, turned around sharply, and got into a fighting stance. Jaeger looked at him and thought, did he feel his presence? This is better than he thought. He said that Sir Joseph wanted to see him. Vlad lowered the sword and thought that he should have left at once instead of hesitating. If he did not behave correctly, he could find himself in a difficult situation. He said with a small smile that it was an honor for him. He thought that he had heard that composure was the most important part of the card game. Jagger approached him and asked, "Does he know why he came?" He said that he heard it from the priest, but did not think that he would come so soon. He looked at him with a small smile and thought that it was interesting. He was a young guy, but he was not afraid of him at all. He turned around, started to leave, and said that he should follow him. The protagonist looked at him and thought, maybe he should try to run away? The voice said that he didn't even have to think about it. He wouldn't have time to take 3 steps before he, a knight of his level, would kill him. He put away his sword and thought he had no choice. After some time they came to the tent. Joseph was reading a book and said that he was finally here. He was glad to meet him. He bowed to him and said that it was an honor for him. He didn't look at him and asked if he was experiencing any inconvenience in his work. He calmly said that everything was fine thanks to his prudence. He said with a calm expression that the blonde man with blue eyes, it seemed to him that he was from some noble family. His name is Riemann, isn't it? Having received a positive answer, he closed the book and said that he should have said about it earlier. Immediately after that, Jagger hit him very hard in the face with his palm. He was a little surprised because of this, and they looked at each other after that. Joseph looked at him with a serious expression, told him his real name, the city he was from, and said that he hated liars. MC wiped his face with his hand and said that it turns out they already know about it. He said that it was confirmed that his mother was a woman with low social responsibility, but they couldn't find out who his father was. Does he know about it? He looked at him with a serious expression and said that it was a good joke to ask someone like him. Because of this, Jagger kicked him really hard in the knee, causing him to fall to the floor. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that he should know when to stop. Joseph went to him and said that actually, it was a good joke. That group of mercenaries, they must have killed someone and brought them back. He already understood why he ran away from Sor, but where did he learn to handle a sword? He looked deeply into his eyes and said that there was so much hidden in those eyes. He was very worried when he heard Jagger behind him start to draw his sword from its sheath. Vlad decided to be honest and said that the lightning strike was his teacher, who appeared out of nowhere. He did not give his name, but said the following. The power of vision of extraordinary skill should not be available to everyone. Joseph noticed that his eyes were not moving and said that he was ready to forgive him for such treatment. He looked at him with a worried look and wondered, did it work? He said that he did not know about him, but now he is in a difficult situation, so he has a proposition for him. He called him by name and asked if he would like to take a higher position, power, freedom, survival, chivalry. He talks about it. He said his name and said that he wants to support him. After some time, the protagonist started to fight with wooden swords against Jagger. The other warriors watched their fight and said that he holds on so easily. It is because he is given in. Did he become Sir Jagger's apprentice? He definitely has outstanding skills. He is jealous and wants to join them. He threw a punch which MC blocked, then swung his sword again and called him a trickster. He asked if it was worth it to be so cocky in front of Joseph with such skills. He should know his place. He blocked his attacks with difficulty and thought that they were of different levels. If he dodges, he immediately follows and his punches are difficult to block. He got an idea. He redirected his punch and threw a punch back which was blocked. The warriors looked at what was happening in amazement and said loudly that he had done well. He was very good. Jagger easily held back his blow and said that it was good that at least he could do that. He looked at him tiredly and thought that it had failed again. He simply let him show himself. He said that in the morning and in the evening, they would continue such sparring twice a day. He began to leave and said that for now they could finish so that he would not overexert himself. Vlad, with a serious expression on his face, quietly said that he had no sense of loyalty and did not even give a single piece of advice. The voice said that it was a good fight. He mercilessly cut off everything that was superfluous from him. Such things can only be understood in practice. He said with a displeased look that they were all against him. After this duel, Joseph asked, so what would he say now that he had seen it himself? Jagger stood in front of him and said that he was not bad. So much so that if he were from a noble family, the Count himself would have noticed him. He looked at him with a smile and said that he knew that his eyes did not deceive him. He said that, however, the problem was that he knew no boundaries and was quite arrogant. He said with a calm expression that it was understandable, since he had grown up on the streets. They could only gradually teach him etiquette. It seemed that the right person was standing right in front of him. He said with a serious expression that one could not trust a sword without loyalty. Joseph said with a smile that even if he bowed his head when he saw it, he still would not believe it. It was good that he had shown his true nature right away. It seemed to be for the best. A wonderful relationship when people give each other what they want. Jagger nodded with a calm expression and said that if he thought so. He asked if he was not like a wolf. arrogant, unreliable, living with a sense of superiority. He did not want to rush, since it would take time to create a large cage, so large that the wolf could confuse it with freedom. After some time, Goethe stood outside at night, shivering from the cold, and asked why there was such a fog in winter. Who would have thought that the captain would become a Jaeger apprentice? He should have been noticed earlier. By the way, success is one thing, but to get into such a situation in such weather? Sir Roderick came up to him and asked if everything was all right. He was surprised when he saw him, loudly agreed, and said that it seemed like nothing unusual here. He said with a calm expression on his face that he should pull himself together and give it his all. He loudly agreed, and said that he didn't need to worry about it. He walked away with a calm expression on his face and left him standing in the same place. Goethe looked at him and said that he was so strong that even a needle couldn't pierce him. He went out on patrol, so he won't be back for a while. Maybe he should get some sleep? He was just starting to fall asleep when he suddenly heard Roderick, who asked what she was doing here. He woke up immediately and with a frightened look wondered if he had left yet. He asked, "What do you mean? Is she looking for a child?" He listened to this and wondered who he was talking to. He turned around at the voice and wondered who he was talking to. Roderick was standing not far from him and told the woman that she was crazy. The woman was about to say that she was looking for her child, but did not finish. Goethe watched this from the side and wondered why she stopped. He began to slowly approach him and wondered where he went. The camp was on the other side. He noticed dark energy around Roderick, and looking closer, he saw a frightening and elongated face of the woman. After some time, Vlad was walking through the forest and said that his whole body hurts. Could he slow down a little? The voice called him a newbie and said that such an opportunity only happens once in a lifetime. Many are willing to pay for the opportunity to fight Jaeger, because he is a knight of such a high level. He remembered with a displeased look how he looked during sparring and said that it seemed like he just wanted to beat him. He said that thanks to this the quality of the fight increases. Anyway, it is important. He looked away with a slightly displeased look and said that it upset him. His attention was attracted by the fact that Goethe began to quietly call him. He noticed him and he, hiding behind a tree, called him and said that he should come to him for a minute. The protagonist looked at him and asked when he came back. It seemed that the team of fighters had not returned yet. He looked around warily and told the captain that he was planning to escape at night. He must not forget that he came here to find him. They should definitely meet up later and have fun. He looked at him with a serious expression and asked what the hell he was saying. Goethe with a worried look said that he asked to take his words seriously. He saw it with his own eyes. This forest they are taking over is cursed. Does he know that some soldiers have escaped? Although the pay is good here and the supplies are pretty good. In fact, they didn't escape. It was the forest that took them. They weren't deserters. They were missing. He remembered the woman's scary face and said that he had seen it himself. There are ghosts in the forest that kidnap people. MC didn't believe him, raised his hand to hit him, and said that he should know when to stop, even if he is talking nonsense. He raised his hands to defend himself and said loudly that it was all true. He swears. Even a knight went missing yesterday. He immediately lowered his hand and asked, "Is he talking about Sir Roderick?" He agreed and asked, "Did he check on the way back and does he know what was there?" Everyone who went missing had black hair. After a while, Goethe walked through the forest with the army following him and thought with a disgruntled expression that he should have just packed up and run without thinking about politeness. Jagger rode on a horse and asked if he could be trusted. Vlad walked next to him, refused and said that, however, he was not mad. He thought with a serious expression that Sir Joseph considered this an opportunity and not an ordinary show fighting monsters. If they found something unusual, it would be more useful. However, it worried him. He asked, "All the missing ones were black-haired, right?" He looked at him and said that there were 3 knights at this post, but they did not notice anything. He said with a calm expression that this meant that they were useless. He thought that, however, he cannot stay here either. If even Roderick was missing, someone more experienced should go. Goethe turned around, called him and said that the fighters had returned. They all stopped in front of them, bowed, and one of them said that he was Aaron, Sir Roderick's apprentice. Jaeger looked at them and asked if they had checked the entire forest, but found nothing. He agreed with this and said that despite the fact that experienced mercenaries were walking ahead, they had not found a trace. He thought that it seemed like he needed to verify this personally. He waved his hand and said that they should split into groups of 3 and explore the area. They should disperse, but be within sight of each other. After some time, Goethe with a displeased expression said that this was not right. How could he do this to him? He was a swindler who enjoyed the respect of others. The protagonist was walking next to him and said that he should stop talking and continue searching because he would give him something. Jagger approached them and asked if they had found anything. He refused and then he called them useless. MC with a calm expression looked at him and said that he was from the city. He asked how they found the missing people in the alleys. He said with a calm expression that it was easy. You could catch someone and demand information. He looked at him with a displeased expression and said that he was really useless. He looked around and thought that the sun was setting, which meant the day would soon be over. Maybe it was time to return to camp? He looked to the side and asked if they had searched on the other side of the river. Goita said that as far as he knew, he had not crossed the river. There was no such direction of attack. Jaeger thought with a serious expression that they had not found anything in the forest so far. They would not be able to find Roderick and the unknown woman here. He said that they should gather all the mercenaries and then cross the river. He agreed and started whistling loudly. He stood on the river and said that the ice was quite thin. Vlad stood next to him and said that it was because winter was ending, but it was still possible to cross. He said that if they spread out, everything should work out. Warriors came to them and one of them asked, did they find him? Goita looked at them and said that they could not find anything. Jaeger turned to them and said that they were expanding the search area to the territory beyond the river. Since they all agreed to this, after which the first group of warriors went across the river. Goita sighed heavily and worriedly, which the protagonist noticed, turned around and asked what was wrong with him. He looked at the river with a very tense expression on his face and said that he had a bad feeling. He said calmly that it was natural, he was just afraid. He was indignant about it and said that of course he was afraid. He was not like him. People like him could survive only thanks to their instinct. However, now it was telling him not to cross the river. He looked at it with a calm expression on his face and said that he did not know much about instinct, but he knew one thing. If he ran away, he would die an unpleasant death. The only one who would run away from the scene? Even if it were him, he would kill himself. He should stop worrying and move on. He would only survive if he crossed the river. Goita, looking frightened, began to slowly follow him and said that he was warning them not to do it. He called out to the captain in fear and asked, the ice could crack, right? He calmly agreed and said that if he kept talking, it would break and he would fall into the water. He fell to the floor and said that he could not go on. MC grabbed him by the collar of his clothes and said that he should go, only they were left. He looked down with a very scared expression on his face and started screaming loudly in fear. He was unhappy with his behavior and was about to say something about it, but immediately changed his mind when he noticed the same thing as him. Goita looked under the ice with a very scared expression and said loudly that there were corpses in the river. The other warriors immediately stopped and looked there too. They started to panic and said loudly that the ice was breaking, they should cross the river faster. Unexpectedly for them, the dead began to float up from the bottom and break through the ice to the outside. The warriors found themselves surrounded, and one of them asked loudly, what is this? What should they do now? Jaeger looked at what was happening with a serious expression on his face and thought that it was a trap. A carefully prepared trap, as if they knew that they would come here. Night and darkness, this is no place for the living. At the same time, Andreas prayed in front of the cross and told the Lord that he was grateful for watching over them. He asked that he continue to show them the way with his light. Jin was a little embarrassed because he stopped praying. He started shaking, and he called for the Lord Priest. He looked at the bowl with a surprised look, which began to be engulfed in dark energy. At the same time, a woman in a white dress came out to the river and asked where her child was. One of the living dead ran to the frightened Goita, who was very scared, and loudly called for the captain. Vlad killed this monster with one blow of his sword, which was about to attack him. He immediately turned around, saw the next group of monsters and killed them all with quick blows. He watched this from the side with a very scared look, and he turned around and loudly told this idiot that he should get up and take his spear. He refused to do this, and he turned around with a displeased look and looked around. The voice said that he should stay calm. First he should think, and only then act. He saw how groups of monsters were getting out of the river, while the rest were surrounding the warriors, and thought that they would not be able to get to the others. I wonder if Sir Jaeger is okay? At the same time, with a calm look, he was killing crowds of monsters with smooth movements that were attacking him from all sides. The rest of the warriors could not win, and were screaming loudly in pain. He thought with a dissatisfied look that there was no end to them. They had planned this ambush well. He does not know who planned it, but he knows exactly who is behind it. He began to prepare to use his aura, and thought that he had no time to waste. Another crowd of monsters was running at him, but he activated his aura and killed these monsters very quickly with his energy. The rest of the warriors looked at him with a joyful look and said loudly that they should all come here. They have Sir Knight. He defeated the monsters with a serious expression on his face, called the main character's name loudly, and said that he must follow the agreement. He defeated another undead man, called his name loudly and asked what he should do. Jaeger continued to fight and said loudly that he must return to the camp and protect it at any cost. He must protect Sir Joseph, as he should. He did not dispute the order, agreed, started to run away and loudly called Goita with him. He looked at him with a frightened look and loudly asked the captain to wait. He looked at him with a serious expression on his face and thought that he hoped that they would get to the camp safe and sound. He heard the sounds that the monsters made nearby and turned around abruptly. He saw Roderick, who had also become a monster, and said that he seemed to be late. At the same time, Joseph was sitting in his tent and heard people outside screaming loudly in pain and asking what was that. He was a little embarrassed by this and asked if this was an ambush. Borden ran into his tent and called him loudly. He stood up from his table, called him by name, and asked what was going on outside. He was confused by this question, could not answer, and he asked with a displeased look, did he burst in here without even finding out what was going on? He said with a worried voice that his safety came first. He became even more angry about this and asked loudly, that was why he came here without a sword? It seemed that his brother was too kind to him. He would have already hanged him for something like this. He bowed and loudly asked for his forgiveness. Also, Andreas entered the tent with Jean, accompanied by 2 knights. Joseph called him by name and asked if he could explain what was going on. The priest showed him a book and said that these were demons. He should look at this. The Bible was written in holy ink. The letters are shaking like crazy. It means that something powerful is heading towards them. He remained calm and asked if there was a way to stop it. He said that he was not an exorcist. Of course, he would try his best with his divine powers, but he doubted that it would do any good. He thought with a serious expression that none of the knights had ever managed to create their own world before, but they had no other choice. He walked towards the exit with a serious expression and said that they had to go. He came out of the tent and was surprised to see a fog enveloping the camp. The warriors were affected by this fog, screaming loudly in pain and saying that he was not her child. Joseph immediately covered his mouth and nose with a handkerchief and asked if this fog was causing the soldiers to hallucinate. Andreas covered his mouth and nose with his hand and said that it was definitely not a natural phenomenon. He looked at what was happening with a serious expression and thought that it seemed that he too had been affected. Immediately after that, they heard a woman's voice calling for her child. They all noticed a woman walking through the camp in a white dress and asking where he was. They were all shocked by what they saw and watched her intently. Suddenly, she stopped, turned her head unnaturally towards them and asked, "He is here, right?" She looked at Joseph and said that she finally found him, the child. She tried to get closer to him, but she burned her fingers and screamed loudly in pain. Andreas and Jean used their powers to hold the sacred barrier that prevented this woman from getting closer. Joseph looked at this with a serious expression and thought, so only Sir Jaeger can defeat this monster? Kaid and Maxim were not enough, even with Andreas's father's blessing. She continued to try to pass through the barrier, crying black tears and loudly calling for her child. He tried to remain calm and thought that it seemed like a curse that was meant for him. Who could it be? Jin started coughing up blood from overexertion. The priest noticed it and said loudly that he should stay put. The sun would definitely rise again. Because of what happened, the woman was able to put her hand through the barrier. He noticed it and wiped the blood from his face. He immediately started supporting the barrier again, and she screamed loudly in pain. Joseph saw how he continued to support the barrier with tears and thought that the priest was already at the limit and the psalm would soon end. Is this really the end? They are in such a bad situation that they can't wait until dawn. He looked behind the woman and noticed a warrior running quickly towards them with a sword in his hand. She sensed him approaching and turned around to face him. MC looked at her with a serious expression and channeled energy into his sword. Before, he was watching the situation from the side, and the voice said that this was the result of a curse. Therefore, it cannot be defeated with an ordinary wedge. He asked what he should do then. The voice asked if he happened to know how to use aura. He asked with a serious expression if that was a joke just now. He thought about it and said that there was one way. To do this, he needed to let him borrow his body for a while. He was a little surprised by this and asked if that was possible. The voice said that he could use mana himself, but he was not sure if he could use it in his body. Even if he could, he would not be able to move for a while. Therefore, he could not recommend this method. Vlad said with a serious expression that, however, if he did not kill this creature, then he would be killed. He stood up to his full height and decided to act on his plan. The voice asked, "Is he absolutely sure about this?" He said with a serious expression that he had made a promise to Joseph. It was his duty. He offered faith in exchange for loyalty. The voice said that he respected his decision. At the moment, he ran very quickly towards the woman, who looked at him with a frightening look and screamed intimidatingly. When he ran close enough, the voice said that it was time now. He should close his right eye. As soon as he did this, he found himself in an unknown space where there was a tornado with lightning and thought, "Is this the world of the voice?" At the same time, he took control of his body, directed the energy into the sword, and with a serious expression on his face, dealt a very strong blow to this monster. Everyone who was nearby and saw what happened was incredibly shocked. Right after this attack, the protagonist fell to his knees and screamed loudly in severe pain due to the use of aura. Joseph looked at him with a worried look and called out his name loudly. He fell to the ground and was shaking due to the intense pain. He looked at him, recalling that blow, and thought that just now, those were definitely traces of aura. He has no idea how he achieved this, but he is sure that he had to pay for it. The woman remained alive after this attack, began to crawl towards him while he was exhausted, and called out for her child. Joseph ran towards him with a slightly worried look and loudly said that they should not stop praying. He helped him to his feet, called his name loudly, and told him that he should hold on to him. She continued calling out for her child and grabbed his leg. Because of this, he fell to the ground and with a tense expression thought that he hated this fragile body of his. Can't he even cope with this? Borden ran up to him, grabbed him by the clothes, and said loudly that he was asking for forgiveness for his insolence. Immediately after that, he threw them both back with a sharp wave of his hands. The woman continued to stretch her hand towards him and screamed loudly in offense. They both fell next to the priest, and Joseph said that for the first time he was glad that he was on his side. In response to this, he thanked him loudly. MC regained his strength a little, picked up the sword, stood up, called the priest, and said that he was asking him to bless his sword. He needed to relieve this woman from suffering. Andreas looked at him with a serious expression and said that he understood. He took it, ran his hand over the blade, leaving his blood on the sword, and said that he blessed his sword. He took it back and thanked him for it. After that, he approached the woman and stopped in front of her. She continued to cry all this time and asked him to help find her child. He looked at her with a sad expression on his face and thought that even if it was just for a moment, he saw a woman locked in a dungeon and a defenseless child on the cold floor. In this vision, he saw her trying to reach for the child and loudly begging for him to come back. He thought that this woman could only beg while her child was dying in front of her eyes. This is a terrifying sight for a mother. Vlad, with a serious and sad expression on his face, swung his sword and said, "Rest in peace." He pierced her with his sword, because of which she in the end she came to her senses, and before dying asked, "Where is her child?" At the same time, in another place, a man in a dark robe was sitting and concentrating energy over a small chest with a smile. Unexpectedly for him, this energy disappeared, and he thought that he no longer felt its presence. Was she killed? But who did it? Among them, only one knight can use aura. Jaeger found him emitting a strong aura and said that so he was the rat who was manipulating those dolls. After some time, Jaeger with a calm expression asked, "So it was him? Is he the one who controlled the dead in the darkness?" He held the man by the hair and said that he thought so. He held a chest in his other hand and said that it also seemed like that woman was looking for this. He looked at it and said that it looked like a child's coffin. He should give this to the priest. They will investigate everything when they return to Varna. It seems that their expedition ended in failure. Jaeger stood next to him and said that he had no excuses. He said that it was a complete failure, but for some reason he felt relieved. He asked how that guy was feeling. He said with a small smile that he seemed to have found the right person. The one who would become his sword. It shines brighter than the others. After some time, the protagonist woke up with a confused look and asked, "Did he sleep for 3 days?" The voice agreed and said, "That's why he should be more careful next time." He didn't know the side effects would be so strong. He said that he was glad though, because he thought they would pack up and leave right away. The voice said that they must have been waiting for him to recover. Joseph seemed to be very worried about him. He didn't respond to this and walked out of the infirmary. He looked around and said that the camp was empty. So, it's no wonder that everyone ran away after so much trouble. Goethe called out loudly to the captain and asked, "Is he awake yet? Does he even know how worried he was?" MC looked at this with a small smirk and asked, "Is he serious? The guy who ran away first came back?" He agreed with a big smile and said that he did promise a bonus upon his return. He carried it to the camp and even risked his life returning here with Sir Knight. "You shouldn't forget about it." He said calmly that he would tell them about it. He said that Sir Jaeger had told him to report to him when he came to. Sir Joseph was in his tent. It seemed he should go and see him. He started to leave, agreed, and wished him a good shift. Goethe waved his hand at him and asked loudly, he wouldn't forget to tell about him, would he? Vlad sighed discontentedly because of this and said that he was incredibly clingy. When he came to the tent, Joseph poured himself some wine and asked, he could drink alcohol, right? He agreed and said that he once worked in a cat house, but he never drank such expensive wine. He said with a small smile that it was a drink for aristocrats. First of all, he would like to thank him, because he could have just run away. He asked calmly, they had an agreement, didn't they? He agreed and said that he promised to swear faith, not loyalty. He thought that even though it was a verbal agreement, he had fulfilled the terms. He could not afford to lose such a man. He needed to make him his subordinate. He put a glass of wine on the table and said that it was now his turn to fulfill the terms of the agreement. He needed to reward him for his actions. He wanted to formally invite him to the Bayezid family. After some time, they reached the Bayezid district, Varna. Jaeger approached him and told the master that he had sent all the mercenaries. Joseph said that this was excellent. They would stay here for a day or two. He needed to report on the results of the expedition. He looked back and saw the protagonist actively looking around. He approached him and asked if this was his first time in Varna. He looked at him and said that he was appearing everywhere for the first time. He called him a country bumpkin, with a calm expression. Joseph looked at him and said that he could take a day off and walk around the city if he wanted. He bowed to him and thanked him for it. Jaeger, with a serious expression, said that he should not get lost. He should return to the city council building by dinner. He agreed, but when he left, he looked at him with a displeased look. The voice said that it seemed that they were both crazy about him. MC, with a displeased look, said that they would strangle him someday from great love. Without taking this into account, since they were well paid for the expedition, he should go eat something tasty. I wonder what this city is famous for. He stopped because Jin took his hand and called him by name. He turned to him and asked how he could help. He said with a kind smile that the priest would like to invite him if he was free. He looked at him and asked, "Does the priest want to see him?" After that, they came to the church. He was surprised by the size and said that even the church in Suara is not that big. He said with a smile that although the capital of Bayezid Sutram, the religious center, is in this city, he can wait inside. The priest will come soon. Vlad went inside and was even more surprised when he saw the interior. He thought that he had just thought about it. They called him praying Riemann, but in fact he never prayed. Why did he feel guilty about it now? Andreas called him by his real name and said that he was sorry for making him wait. He said with a small smile that everything was fine. He was grateful to him for inviting him. He laughed and said that it was not worth thanking. He handed him a small object and said that he should take it. It was his personal card. Sir Joseph most likely prepared this for him too, but usually it is given out in the church, since the blessing of the Lord is given everywhere. The protagonist was very surprised by this and read that the priest was his guarantor. He patted him on the shoulder with a smile and said that he should not be shy and come to them in difficult times. From that moment on, he was his guarantor. He knelt down and thought that a kid from the gateway like him, who did not even have a birth certificate, was able to get a guarantor and write his name in this huge world. From that day on, he was no longer a slum dweller, but Vlad from Sor. After some time, they all went on a journey, and Joseph said that the county of Bayezid consists of 12 small and 3 large cities. The logistics center, Sor, the religious center, Varna, and the capital, Sutram. When they entered the building, Jaeger with a serious expression said that they were now guests of Sir Joseph. They must keep in mind that any foolish action will affect his reputation. They should not run around here like hillbillies. It is better to sit quietly. MC looked at him and agreed with him. He said that the servants would bring refreshments. He was about to say something else, but changed his mind and said that they should wait and not eat anything. If they eat like barbarians, it will only create a reason for bad rumors about them. He was about to say something about this, but he said that he should shut up and not eat anything. They entered the room, and Goethe, with a surprised expression on his face, asked, "Is this really a foster home? The Bayezid family is simply incredible." He, with a calm expression on his face, said that he knew about it. Their attention was drawn to a man named Rütiger Bayezid, who said that he had never met them before. He wanted to laze around here quietly. He approached them and with a serious expression on his face asked, "Who are they?" Vlad looked at him with a very worried expression and thought that he looked familiar, but his aura was on a completely different level, as if he could cut a person in half with just one look. Goethe bowed, said his name and said that they had accompanied Mr. Joseph on an expedition. The man said that he understood him. After that, he turned around and he said his name with a serious expression. He looked at him with a calm expression and said that he had never heard of him. He thought that his eyes were full of rage and he was not hiding it at all. Is he self-confident, even in front of him? It seems that Joseph has gotten his hands on a very useful guy. He likes him. He took out some peanuts and asked if they wanted to eat. He said with a serious expression that they were told not to eat anything here. Goethe was very surprised by this and thought, is he completely crazy? How can he refuse high-ranking people like that? Rüdiger looked at him with a dissatisfied and confused look and asked, is that so? As a result, his first act in the Bayezid house was to refuse the peanuts that the Count's eldest son offered him. He ate the peanuts himself and said that it was very tasty. At the same time, Count Peter asked, he said, his name is Vlad, right? Joseph agreed with him, and he said that they did not have anyone special except Jaeger, whom his mother brought. If he could raise him to be as good a knight as everyone else in their family, he would reward him. He bowed and thanked him. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that he understood that the sword was not his strong point, but he should not forget that he was a Bayezid. He agreed with this, and his father calmly asked, was he feeling better already? He agreed again, and he said that he could go. He advised his father to rest and began to leave his office. Peter looked at him and said that he needed to give him some medicine. His advisor Ragmus asked he would definitely be happy and Mrs. Oksana too. He agreed and said that she was very caring towards her son. By the way, what did he think of his report? He said that it should be taken seriously. Strange things happen all the time. He was clearly displeased and said that it was necessary to find out who was behind this. How dare they do such things on his land? He said that, however, there was a report from Varn, a really interesting combination of the risen dead and curses. They believe that this is the work of either a great dark magician or a weaker couple. Peter, with a serious expression, said that if there were more of them, it could be a whole group or an organization. He agreed and said that it was possible. He started to get up from his chair and said that in any case, it did not change anything, because the House of Bayezid must remain unshakable. They were ready to do whatever it took to get rid of those who dared to stand in their way. He hopes that they will find them soon. Those who threatened his son and created chaos on his land. Joseph entered the room and said that the report took longer than he expected. How long did they wait for him? They turned to him and he said loudly that it was not so at all. He looked at him and asked, "His name is Gutta, right?" He loudly agreed with it, and he said that they will talk about his reward tomorrow. The servants will show him his bedroom. He can go and rest. He said with a slightly confused look that in that case he will go. When he left that room, he sat down on a chair and asked, "Now can they talk?" He saved his life and decided to dedicate his sword to him. Is that right? The protagonist agreed, and then he said that he would dedicate his sword to him, but in contradiction he wants to be free. It is necessary to clarify this. What exactly does he want to do with his freedom? If he says, then he will think about whether he can give it to him. He asked with a serious expression, the knight who resembled the blue moonlight, Godin of Gaidar, do they know him? Joseph looked at him and thought he was just a useful guy, but he had such an unusual story. He asked, so the unknown person who destroyed his cat house was this person? He thought with a serious expression that he would never forget him. He killed his savior, destroyed the world he lived in. He agreed with him and thought that, however, he can't help but admire him. He said with a serious expression that there was nothing he could do to help him. This man was beyond his influence. MC thought that he expected something like this. After all, he was just the son of a count. However, he was still grateful that he told him the truth. He wanted to say something, but he got ahead of him and said that he was offering to change the terms. He was offering him a contract for 7 years. He must not know, but he put aside his honor as a nobleman. He must keep in mind that it took a lot of determination. Vlad looked at Jagger, who was looking at him with a displeased expression, and thought that he did not know much, but it seemed like this was an unprecedented case. Joseph said that he promised him a wonderful future for saving him. During these 7 years, he would clothe him, feed him, train him, and raise him to be a knight who would be able to do anything, no matter how far he went. In turn, he would be loyal to him and would only do what he said and allowed. Of course, he would not be allowed to do anything related to Godin. However, he allowed him to deal with matters related to the slums of Sor, and could help with that. He had heard that Zemina was now indebted to someone. What could one achieve with just a sword in one's hands? After all, a sword is not the only sharp weapon. He had his own weapon. What would he do? After some time, he looked out the window and said that he was aiming for greatness. Jagger stood next to him and asked why he was so determined to achieve great things. He could find as many useful people as he wanted. He said that he could, and they all had potential. Whether it would work out, however, was another matter entirely. He asked with a serious expression if he expected him to live up to their expectations. Joseph said that he absolutely did. He had clearly seen it with his own eyes. Jagger said that he was not only unpredictable, but also extremely unruly. He would be difficult to handle. He turned to him and asked, he did have it, didn't he? 7 years, that's a long time. That's enough time to tie him up, appease him, and tame him. He said with a calm expression that he would do his best then. He said with a serious expression that the more difficult it was to deal with him, the better the result would be. He looked out the window and said that he thought he was just a useful wolf cub. However, it turned out that he was actually a wolf chasing the moon. After some time, Jagger said that this was now his personal room for one. Vlad looked at it and said that it looked great. The floor was clean, and there was even a bed, just like a palace. He said that he seemed to have forgotten that he was from the slums. Usually warriors come from good families, and it is difficult for them to adapt to this. However, he will succeed if he does not make mistakes. He was about to say something about him not taking the peanuts from Rudiger with a slightly worried expression. He said with a calm expression that he always listened to him carefully anyway. After he has eaten, he must come to the training grounds. They will fight twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, just like during the expedition. He walked out into the hallway and was surprised to see Lady Oksana, who called him her loyal knight. Jaeger turned around, called her name, and said that she was Lord Joseph's mother. He should greet her respectfully according to the rules of etiquette, as he had been taught. They both bowed and he greeted her. She stopped in front of them and said, "Good morning." Was this him they were talking about? He agreed and said that Lord Joseph had personally invited him. The protagonist and she looked at each other for a few seconds, and he began to feel embarrassed and looked down. She thanked him and asked if he had saved her son, right? He said with an embarrassed expression that he had just been doing his duty. Oksana said that she should reward him. He had done more than he could imagine. He was about to thank him, but she patted his head and said that it was a beautiful color. It suits his blue eyes very well. He has very broad shoulders for being so thin. He needs to gain weight. It will look better. She will send him clothes soon. He continued to be embarrassed and thanked her hesitantly. She left and said that he could continue then. Jaeger bowed and wished her a good day. Was he always like this? Why was he so scared? He said with a serious expression that he had never talked to girls. He said with a calm expression that it was not bad for the first time. He started to leave and said that they should go eat. After that, they came to the dining room where several warriors approached him and Sovanen spat in his soup. He looked at him with a sly smile, apologized, and asked, "What now?" He accidentally mistook him for a trash can. The warriors next to him started to laugh loudly. He fished out his saliva with a spoon with a serious expression and threw it on the floor. He continued eating with a calm expression on his face and thought that it happened earlier than he expected. He looked at him with a displeased look and wondered what was wrong with him. Why was he so calm? MC remembered that earlier Jaeger said that he should keep in mind that now every action of his reflects on Mr. Joseph's reputation. He wondered how he could beat him if it would reflect on the gentleman. Sovanen left with a displeased look and said that they finally had a chance to laugh at someone. He sat in his place and asked what his name was. He turned to him and asked what he just said. He looked at him with a serious expression on his face and said that he should say his name. He got scared because of this and wondered what this incredible aura was. He said his name in a frightened voice. Vlad started to walk away in the other direction and said that he would remember this. After a while, Peter was walking down the street and looked at the training ground and said that it looked like they were training. He offered to watch it and Ragmus agreed to it. He noticed Vlad standing there and asked, "Is that him?" He had heard that it was the blonde guy. He looked cute. His advisor looked the other way and told the leader that he should look there. He turned around and he said that there was someone watching. It was Jaeger. The first time was always restless. He said with a calm expression that he offered to see what he was capable of. After that, he started fighting one of the warriors with wooden swords, and they struck each other incredibly quickly. The protagonist gained the advantage, and Peter said that his opponent was much taller than him. He was quite slimy. However, there was something about him, and it was commendable. Although he was clumsy, he tried his best to use what he had learned. He thought he had better remember that everyone started with this, the placement of the feet. If he deceives the opponent with his shoulders and gaze, he can control his movements. He dodged his opponent's blow very quickly and made a sharp blow with his sword. He grabbed the place where he was hit and thought that however he was definitely aiming to the left. He grabbed him by the hair, called him a supporter of Sovanen, and asked if he liked laughing in the dining room. He can laugh a little more. He started punching him hard in the face, which surprised everyone around. Ragmus looked at this and asked, "They are training, but is it normal for him to hit him like that?" Peter left with a calm expression and said that it was okay. To become a knight, you need a strong spirit. He seems to like it. He looked at Jaeger, who was watching what was happening with a slightly satisfied look and thought that this seemed true. MC continued to hit the guy, and Sovanen loudly said that he should stop. He once again loudly asked him to stop and asked if he considered him an empty space. He finally let go of the unconscious guy, looked at him with a scary look and said that he was asking for forgiveness for getting carried away. He looked at him with a scared look and wondered what kind of look he had. After that, he came up to him and said with a smirk that they should tell him that he was sorry. He just couldn't come to his senses because he got carried away. He should let him apologize to him in advance too, because it won't end there. He'll call him if the soup is bland to spit in. Sovanen looked at him with a displeased look and thought that this freak was really crazy. Mr. Joseph brought a mad dog from the slums. After some time, Goethe asked the captain if he had heard that he had beaten up the other vassals. Was it true? There was a rumor among the servants. Vlad asked with a calm expression how he was doing. Was the job within his capabilities? He agreed and asked, does he think he is an ordinary groom? He is the groom of the great Count Bayezid. Wait, they are not talking about that now. He heard that he was beating up a group of people all over the estate, and that is a crime. He asked with a calm expression on his face, why is he acting like this is news? Has he forgotten that he has always been a criminal? He was the one who felt sorry for them. Of course, he did not just beat them up because they themselves suggested it. He asked why he thought this was normal. The protagonist said that no one talks to him unnecessarily anymore. It is more convenient and better this way. A guy came up to them, greeted them with a confused voice and said that he was Portly Canner. He turned to him and with a calm expression on his face asked what business he came for. He tried to say something, but he continued to eat and said that he should sit down or leave, and not just stand there. He was happy about this and asked if he could really sit with them. He sat down next to him and said that he was grateful for the offer to sit. He looked a little confused and thought that he meant to leave. Portly looked a little sad and said that he always ate alone, in the toilet or something. MC, with a calm expression, said that he was eating a precious sausage. He pointed to the sausage in his hand and asked if it was delicious. Wasn't it? Those sausages were supplied by his father. The Canner family supplied all the meat here. They had been in the cattle business for generations. He offered to give his share of the food and asked if he wanted more. He looked at him incredulously and asked what was going on. They came to a room where there was a lot of meat, and he said that his father had sent it for him to eat. However, he couldn't eat that much on his own. He thought that all the vassals here were the children of the great families. He forgot that they were the kind of people he would never talk to while living in the slums. It would be nice to make at least one useful acquaintance here, right? He called him by name with a smile and asked if he wanted to eat with them. Portly was happy about it and asked if they really didn't mind. Vlad agreed and said that it seemed like they would get along. He thought that he wasn't doing this for the sausages. After a while, Jaeger walked down the corridor and thought that serving Master Joseph and educating people wasn't that easy. He only had a chance to catch his breath when Cade and Maxim were resting. A man named Gregory came up to him, called him over and asked where he was going in such a hurry. He looked at him with a calm expression on his face and called him by name. He laughed and said that his displeasure was too obvious. He said calmly that, as he could see, he was a bit busy at the moment. He waved his hand and said with a smile that he was not surprised. He must be very busy, doing all of Master Joseph's tasks all by himself. Jaeger asked if he had something he wanted to say. He said that a man like him should be raising an apprentice. To be honest, he didn't think it was too late. He looked at him with a calm expression and asked if perhaps he should concentrate on his apprentice. Gregory said with a smile that his dear Portly was already quite an adult. He needed to lose some weight. He asked what he wanted to say. He said with a slightly confused look that his new apprentice seemed quite good to him, manly and strong in spirit. He looked at him with a displeased look and said that he had already said that he was busy. What did he need? He said with a slightly worried look that it was not quite right for a knight to interfere in his apprentice's affairs. It was awkward. It seems that Vlad has warmed up to Portly lately. He said with a calm expression on his face that this guy has no friends at all. He considers himself better than everyone else. He said that he asks to tell him so that they can be friends. He is his cousin's nephew and he cannot beat him, and it is useless to ask others. Jagger asked with a serious expression on his face, "Is he offering this for free?" Gregory said that if everything works out, then he can turn to him for help later. He turned away with a displeased look and said that he does not listen to him. He said with a smile that he is making progress. He said with a displeased look that he does tell him he is right not to listen to him. He chuckled because of this and said that he really is making progress. After some time, Goethe told the captain that judging by what he sees, the problem is not in him. He cannot even mount a horse. However, all the horses are well trained and are not afraid of people. However, when he approaches, for some reason they get scared and run away, right? This definitely has nothing to do with the skill. The other groom also said that it was strange. The protagonist thought with a displeased look that it was always like this. Dogs, cats, all animals hate him and get scared when he passes by. Is the same thing true for horses? He remembered something and said that, however, back then he was riding Sir Jaeger's horse. The night they fled from the dead, however, he was holding the reins then. He said that Sir Jaeger's horse was very expensive. He thought with a displeased look that he could only ride expensive horses. You can't just say that. He insisted that he learn horse riding at any cost. A woman approached them and said that Mrs. Oksana had called him. He was a little surprised by this and looked at her. After that, he came to her and she asked who would have thought that he grew up in the slums. MC stood there in his new clothes and she said that they suited him very well. She turned to the tailor and said that there was no need to tailor the clothes too closely. After all, he was 17 years old and still growing. Joseph had grown a lot at this age. When summer came, she would give him other clothes. After all, wearing clothes according to the season was necessary for maintaining physical fitness. He looked down with an embarrassed expression and thanked her. She said with a kind smile that he saved her son's life. She was the one who should thank him. She apologized for calling him when he was busy training. Now he could go. He bowed and thanked her for that. He left the room with a slightly dissatisfied look, sighed and quietly said that for some reason, she was very difficult. He looked at his new clothes and wondered how much they cost. They were so comfortable as if they weren't his. However, they really didn't belong to him. He couldn't get used to them. He tried so hard to get into the Bayezid family, but he still doesn't feel like he's a part of them. It's like gaining weight. The flesh clings to the soul. He looked out the window and noticed a crowd of people standing around two people fighting. Savanan was hitting Portly hard, insulting him loudly and asking, he's already forgotten this feeling, right? Is he having fun because they let him live quietly? He likes his new friend, doesn't he? Dirty freaks gather together, right? Vlad looked at this with a calm expression and thought that people are the same everywhere. There are those who live a great life and have a good time, and those who just can't live in peace. In the end, they're just freaks who prey on those weaker than them. He walked down the hallway and said that he'll probably wear this today. After a while, he put on his usual clothes, knocked on the door, and Portly asked with a worried voice, "Who is this?" He said his name, and he immediately opened the door for him. He saw his battered face and asked him what he was doing here so late. He said that he needed something from him. He pointed to something in his room and said that he was asking for it to be given to him. He looked in the direction he pointed and asked if he wanted free ham. After receiving a positive answer, he thought sadly that even though they were not friends, he hoped that they would at least smile at each other in a friendly manner when they met. It seemed that he also thought that one could only drink blood from him. However, it was still better than being alone. He brought it to him, and the protagonist took it and said with a calm expression that he shouldn't think that it was unfair. It was because he only took a fair price. He said with a serious expression that a knight he knew had said something similar. He went outside, where he was met by a crowd of guys, and thought that the knight only took what was rightfully his. He looked at them with a calm expression and said that it was 14 against 1. Even in the slums it hadn't come to that. Savanan with an angry expression said that he should shut his mouth. They would see how long he could last. MC motioned for them to come to him and said that he should come to him then, quickly. He had come all this way for him. Didn't they do the same? This made him even more angry, and he loudly ordered the guys behind him to attack him. He said with a small smirk that he was glad that he had changed. He swung his sword and said that there would be bloodshed tonight. He threw all the enemies aside, and when one of them fell in front of those who had not yet entered the battle, they became very nervous, but still rushed to attack, because they thought that with their superiority in numbers they would be able to defeat him. Sovanin, looking at all this, became nervous, because when they fought, Vlad was different. What is the point in something like this? 2 months ago, he could barely hold a sword. He ordered his guys not to retreat. Let them remember that he will kill anyone who retreats. At that moment, MC appeared right in front of him. He swung and asked, "He dares to say such a thing, but has he ever actually killed anyone?" Because of this, the guy got angry and grabbed the sword, but when he swung it, Vlad ducked under his blade and swung with the thought that during the expedition, he was doing what he did with all his might, delivering single blows. He threw a punch, which his opponent blocked, and the Nameless One noticed that the results of his training with Jaeger were showing. He was driving his opponents into the trap he had prepared. MC threw him a few precise punches, which made his opponent run out of breath, and because of that, he missed a punch to the shoulder. At that moment, Vlad realized. This was his gap, his space, his flow. At the moment when his opponent lunged forward, he jumped and hit him under the knee, which made him immediately fall to the ground and start crying for his sore leg, and a second later, he saw a boy above him and his sword, heading straight for his eye. He became very nervous, and MC thrust his sword with all his might, and a loud scream was heard. All the other vassals froze, not understanding what was happening. Vlad took pity on Sovanin, thrusting his sword into the ground next to his head, and the poor guy burst into tears and trembled with fear. Finally, MC told him to never look him in the eye again, and not to mess with Fatty, and the guy nodded. At that moment he realized that he seriously tried to kill him. After that, he stood up and said that he worked the jamon, and turned to the others, asking who's next? Let them finish what they started. They all froze in place, not daring to move a finger from fear, and he walked towards them and threateningly said that if they don't come, then he will. They all irritated with fear, and then in a panic they started to run, but Vlad did not let him leave, and started beating them. Meanwhile, Count Bayezid watched all this from the window and thought it was great. Soon the monthly meeting of the knights was held. Although it was not intentional, but on one side stood those who supported Rudiger, and opposite them were those who supported Joseph and remained neutral. The captain of the knightly order, Anatolis, informed them that they had changed the duty schedule to prepare for the absence of Rudiger and the knights who would soon be leaving on a mission. The next item on the agenda was the distribution of sacred objects sent by the church. Count Bayezid, who was also present at the meeting, kept a close eye on the situation around him. The atmosphere had changed dramatically. Those supporting Rudiger were embittered, as if ready to tear everyone apart. On the contrary, their side was Joseph. They were calm. He smiled faintly and thought that he should still be happy. After all, the knights on Joseph's side had been depressed all this time. Jagger looked up at him and somehow saw a smile under his mustache, very surprised, because such a thing was alien to the Count. Finally, the meeting ended and everyone began to disperse. One of the knights passing by Jagger clicked his tongue in displeasure and said that he had brought a mad dog that did not even know who it was allowed to bite and who it was not. This is what it means. Biography matters. The knight only smirked at them in response, which made them make dissatisfied faces, but decided not to quarrel and leave. After all, he was his student. Gregory approached Jagger and laughed, noticing that they were all burning with anger. He did not understand what he meant, and he, confident that he knew everything, asked why he was pretending to be innocent. Everything had long been obvious. He heard that his student had staged a mass beating. Even the drill instructor said that he could not cope with him because he was unconventional. Jagger, although he did not know anything, kept an impassive face, and then the knight hit himself on the chest with his fist, thanking him. As he promised, he could always turn to him for help, regardless of the seriousness of the request. Jagger left, waving goodbye and telling him he would keep that in mind, then grinning and thinking how proud he was of him. No wonder, who taught him after all? It was the least he could do. When he came to meet the young master, he saw a chest and a dummy of equipment. Joseph said his father had sent it to Vlad as a gift. Jagger was surprised that the Count himself had sent it, and Borden thoughtfully remarked that it was too nice for a mere vassal. Jagger saw that the armor was made of orc leather, specifically gray orc, and Joseph confirmed it. Gray orcs were only found in the north, and armor made from gray orcs signified a northern warrior. The young master smiled and said that his father must have liked him very much. He believed Vlad had proven himself worth the investment. After all, he had earned his father's approval in just a month. The knight agreed with him. At least no apprentice could defeat him. Joseph said that he had heard about it too. Rumors traveled fast. He showed them the letter and said that they couldn't sit idle either. This was their next step. Jagger read the message and remarked that it was a rather unusual invitation. His master asked if he could respond to it, and he confirmed it, saying that it just so happened that he had been holding back and cleaning up after him lately. Then Joseph said that everything was decided. They were leaving for Durmar. A new day had dawned. It was time to leave. While Vlad and Joseph were riding in the carriage, they whiled away their time talking. Joseph told him that Durmar was famous for its lemons. This city should be thanked, because in the north you can hardly find fruit, and this is one of the passages to the central region, which is also important for the northerners. MC wondered, is this why Sir Jagger went? He confirmed it. After all, a crisis is an opportunity, especially if this crisis is not his. The Heinel family is currently in dispute. An invitation from the rightful heir is, in general, a cry for help. Vlad was puzzled by all this, and he admitted that the world of aristocrats is quite complicated. After all, this is a battle for the lands of Durmar, between members of the same family, because fighting with your relatives is a long-standing tradition of aristocrats. The rightful heir of the Heinel family is Alicia. Her uncle, Endre Heinel, claims that she is illegitimate. If she is gone, he is sure that he will be the next Baron of Durmar. Alicia was the only child of the previous Baron, but her inherent limitations as a woman weakened her position. In the end, she was left with no choice but to prove her innocence through an honor duel organized by the church. They don't have a very close relationship. She's more than a second cousin by blood, but it's certainly enough to be considered relatives. He said that they would use this chance to make Heinel stay in their debt. His father approved of the idea. MC glanced at Jagger riding a horse next to the carriage and was impressed. He was a knight who was invited by the heiress to protect her portion. Noticing his gaze, he asked with displeasure why he was looking at him so arrogantly. Vlad was slightly upset and said that he didn't even do anything, but his mentor still began to scold him and call him an insignificant vassal who had the audacity to comfortably ride in a carriage while his knight mentor was riding a horse. He looked away and told him that he had nothing to say in his defense, which made the knight even more angry. After throwing the other students around, he was finally able to walk with his head held high. But he can't even ride a horse. He can't believe he's teaching such a moron. MC muttered that he could probably ride an expensive horse, and then his mentor couldn't take it anymore and started shouting, saying that he should be the one riding an expensive horse, because he was more of an aristocrat than he was. He hung his head dejectedly from his swearing, and felt how his heart for some unknown reason began to beat like crazy. He touched his chest and thought, is it because of his swearing? But that's not surprising. He looked up at the young master and thought that Sir Joseph sitting in front of him was not shutting up, and Sir Jagger was at his side, grumbling at him at every opportunity. But it turns out that this was not the case. Very soon he felt tremors and realized that it was an earthquake. Borden carefully said that the earth was shaking, and then another tremor occurred, but with greater force. Jagger got excited and turned to the others, ordering them to stop and get off their horses. They started to follow the order, and Vlad got very nervous. He kicked the carriage door, then grabbed Joseph and pressed on his head, forcing him to bend over. So they ran out of the carriage, and judging by Joseph's face, he was very surprised by his actions. After that, he told him that his loyalty was admirable, but he shouldn't panic so much. MC didn't understand what he did wrong, and after a few minutes the shaking finally stopped, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Vlad said that this was his first time experiencing an earthquake, and Joseph explained that it wasn't an earthquake. He pointed to the tracks ahead, as if a huge mole had crawled underground, and said that it was a giant death worm, a descendant of a fallen dragon. This greatly surprised MC, but at the same time delighted him, and that's why he smiled. Finally, they arrived at the only city of the Heinel family, Durmar. The carriage stopped at the estate, and Joseph told Vlad that now he could go wherever he wanted. He clarified. Could he go somewhere alone? He told him that he could take a guy named Gotha with him if he wanted. Let him walk around, look around here. He was slightly surprised by this, and Joseph asked, "Is he unhappy?" He told him that it was not so at all, and then he told him to think about why he brought him here. It is not often that you get to see a knight's duel, not to mention that it is a team fight. Besides, there are knights from all walks of life present here. Let him study them and understand what he should do. Now MC understood what he wanted from him, and Joseph thought that it was better for him to see everything himself than to hear. In any case, he wants to raise him properly. He hopes that this experience will broaden his horizons. Jaeger finally told him to be careful so that he does not get beaten up in some alley, and in the evening they will warm up and spar. He answered him with offense that he is not that stupid, and his mentor said discontentedly that he has already lost faith in him. He cannot even ride a horse. He felt uneasy from his reproaches and looked away, after which they headed to the estate, and Joseph told him at last that he would have to report everything to him every evening. If he noticed anything unusual, then he should tell him about it right away. He bowed his head in respect, and then thought about what he should do now. He had not had free time for so long, so he decided to walk around the area. He walked along a small corridor and noticed that this estate was smaller than Bayezid's, and it looked old. They don't take care of it? They are also famous for their lemons, but it doesn't look like they have money. Suddenly his sword trembled, and a voice said that he remembered how he had been here. He recognized that tree on the hill. Vlad looked at it and smiled and said that he just needed to find a place and pray for the first time in a long time. He remembered the promises they made to each other. The voice would give him the sword, and he would give him memories. They had been talking all this time, so it was time to return everything. Meanwhile, Joseph met with Alicia. She was grateful to him for coming all the way here, and he said that during the crisis of the rightful heir, he had to respond. The call of blood is most important, isn't it? Alicia remained silent, and Joseph said that Count Bayezid had already given permission. The decision was hers. She nervously clasped her hands and confidently answered him that she had already decided everything. It would be as the Count wanted. Victory was hers. Joseph smiled and told her not to worry about it, because the sword of Bayezid always promised victory. After the conversation, they left the throne room, and Borden said that they should not underestimate her. Jaeger agreed with him and said that he noticed her temperament as a ruler. It may seem like a risk, but she is holding up well. Joseph said that he thought so too. She kept everything under control until the last. He looked at them and said with a serious expression that even so their plan remains the same. Meanwhile, MC walked up the hill to the tree and found himself in the family cemetery. He looked at the gravestones and thought that maybe that's why people are so obsessed with leaving a mark. Because if you look at the scars left behind, the memories of that day will come up. He smiled slightly and said that he would like to do something like that for his mother too, after which he walked up to the grave and noticed that it was completely neglected. He shook off the fallen leaves and his hand froze when he realized what he was doing in someone else's cemetery. In his defense, he said that after all, greeting the owners of the lands is a common thing, and the voice noted that he was completely silent. Vlad smiled wryly, after which he pulled his sword out of its sheath and asked him to look into his heart, because he didn't even go to see the knights he came for. He thanked him, and he thrust the sword into the ground and knelt down on one knee as if praying. A few seconds later, the silhouette of the Nameless One appeared behind him. He said that something was coming back to him. This tree was smaller then. But when was that? As if he was here with someone. He fell silent, feeling something. It seemed to him that this creature was watching them. It recognized him. MC did not understand who he was talking about, and the Nameless One asked permission to borrow his body for a while, and he agreed. He closed his eyes and let it in, which caused a blue glow, and then he opened one eye and saw everything that the Nameless One saw, and was very surprised. The tree in front of him was not dry, but full of life and greenery, and at the top sat a spirit, a white snake. The snake did not take its eyes off him, and he became nervous, and in his thoughts he noted that lately he had been seeing so many strange things. He said that it seemed to be looking at him. The voice answered him that it was looking at him inside him, and then the spirit began to descend from the tree, which made him nervous. The The voice said that it did not think that it would bite him, and he asked doubtfully, how did he know that? A thought flashed through his mind that this spirit was huge, but did not seem threatening at all. On the contrary, it radiated warmth, as if spring had come to this hill. Suddenly, a woman's voice was heard behind him, who asked who he was. The nameless one immediately came out of his body and the snake disappeared, dissolving into thin air. MC turned around nervously and Alicia asked how he got here. Only members of the Heinel family can be here. Vlad did not recognize her, and because of her clothes, he mistook her for a servant. He put away his sword and apologized to her, saying that he was looking for a quiet place to pray, so he came here. She frowned and looked at him suspiciously. Then he showed her a wooden tablet and said that he was not someone suspicious, but a knight's apprentice, Sir Jaeger. She crossed her arms over her chest and read the information on the wooden tablet, after which she admitted that he was not suspicious at all. He smiled wryly and thanked her hesitantly, after which an awkward pause arose between them, and he thought that it was probably rude to stand at the grave of an aristocrat. If she said something wrong, Sir Jaeger could find himself in a difficult situation, and he would be in trouble too. He was already imagining his mentor preparing for his punishment and realized that he needed to say something to keep her quiet. He offered to help her and asked, she was a servant, right? She came to tend to the grave? She was surprised, but did not tell anything about her situation, and he said that he had cleaned up a bit before she arrived. A lot of leaves had already fallen. She turned to the grave with doubt, and he said that he thought it was normal to greet the landowners. She remained silent, and then he, taking the tools and bucket that she had dragged, said that he would wash everything, but he wanted to ask her for a favor. Could they forget about today's meeting? If Jaeger found out about this, he would be very angry with him. This made the girl smile, but she quickly hid it and said with a haughty look that she would keep it a secret if he cleaned up here well. He bit his lip in anger and thought that beauties were always hard to persuade, after which he began to rub the gravestone and mentally resent. Looking at him, Alicia almost laughed and then began to watch the wind carry away the fallen leaves. Time passed. MC finally began the task that was assigned to him, namely to watch the knights. Looking at their fight, he thought with his mouth wide open in amazement that it was amazing. Now he knows what a duel between knights looks like. The voice noted that Sir Colin had pretty good strength. If he gets to him, he can grind his bones. Vlad frowned and thought that he was very strong. No wonder they call him the dirty boar of Middle-earth. He said that Sir Pablo seemed more impressive to him. He agreed with him. He had excellent technique with a shield, and he was also agile enough to parry most attacks. Looking at all this, MC couldn't believe that this was a warm-up for tomorrow's fight, and asked, to become a knight, he must be that good? The nameless one reminded him that Sir Borden was also a knight, which made him feel uneasy. When he was in Sora, he didn't know this, but now he seems to understand his place in this huge world. He sighed heavily and realized that he had a long way to go. The day of the duel came. Vlad tightened the straps on the mentor's armor, and he asked him to tighten it tighter. While he was busy with his armor, he looked at Endra and thought, is he trying to take the place of the head from his niece? Jaeger told him to watch carefully. It's not every day that he gets to witness a knight's duel. He also doesn't know what happened yesterday, but he shouldn't worry about that. Realizing that he found out about everything, MC was surprised and asked why he was reacting like that. It was all written on his face. He looked down, remembering yesterday's fight, and thought that, to be honest, it was all somehow amazing. After all, the skills of the knights he secretly learned about were literally incredible. His mentor said that a child starts with walking, and he is not ready to run yet. The higher the goal, the longer the path he needs to go. Thinking about this, Vlad closed his eyes and told him that he understood everything, after which the servant loudly asked for everyone's attention. The doors to the throne room opened and Alicia appeared along with her knight. MC looked at her and thought that it was Lady Heinel. Who would have thought, and he had never seen her before. She seemed to be quite young, according to rumors. When she stepped out of the shadows and came closer, he was greatly surprised. And the servants announced that Alicia Heinel had arrived. A voice told him to add insulting aristocrats to his list of crimes, and he realized what a mistake he had made. When Alicia passed by him, he met her gaze. She looked very arrogant and even a little scary. This made him nervous and bowed his head further, realizing that she recognized him. His reaction made her smile imperceptibly, then took her rightful place on the throne. The priest said that now that both sides of the duel were in place, they could begin. Let the gods watching them be witnesses. And so began the duel, on which everything was at stake. An honorable, but cruel duel. The blood of the nobility is blue. The red one cannot bear responsibility, debt, and karma. But Alicia is not ready to spill her blood yet. After some time had passed since the fight had started, she threw down the white handkerchief and worriedly told them to stop. She was giving up. Her loyal knight named Duncan was already quite wounded, but he still wanted to continue the fight, not wanting to endanger his lady. The priest said that his master had thrown down the handkerchief, so he should accept defeat. His opponent called the knight captain and said that it was a great fight. Still trying to catch his breath, he asked, "Is he still his captain?" He looked at him with an arrogant smile, and he thought that he raised him to be the future of the House of Heinel, but who knew that he would return with a sword that would kill his own teacher. He gritted his teeth, realizing what a shame it was, and then the priest declared the knight Sir Endre, Sir Shard, the winner of the duel. The nobles laughed and told Endre that this was a great start, after which the next representatives came out to fight. The priest repeated the rules just in case. It is forbidden to use aura. The fight ends when either their master or the representative himself surrenders, or in the case of a serious wound that will not allow the duel to continue. Before the fight began, Jaeger looked at his student and pointed to his eye, mentally telling him to look closely. He has not yet learned to walk, but is trying to run. He concentrated on his movements, and Jaeger, taking out his sword, began today's lesson, and the teaching material is a wild boar from the central region. Colin struck with his sword with all his might, and he recoiled to the side, dodging the blow, and then this wild boar screamed loudly and attacked again. But unfortunately, he did not hit the agile knight. He looked at him angrily and thought that he was one step ahead. He would definitely win. He swung again, struck with his sword, and thought that he was a little faster and a little stronger. But no matter how hard he tried, Jaeger easily dodged each of his blows, taking small steps to the sides and jumping. From the outside, it seemed that Colin was driving him into a corner, and that made the aristocrats happy. But Pablo saw that it was not so at all. Didn't they notice how at some point the fight took an unexpected turn? He was sure that the owner of the sword himself felt it now. And he was right. Colin began to get nervous, because he still couldn't reach his opponent. Jaeger decided to make fun of him and said "Ole," which provoked this wild boar, and he pounced on him in a rage, shouting all sorts of curses. When he raised his sword to strike again, Jaeger did not dodge and took out his weapon, directing it towards the enemy's blade. At that moment, the Nameless One excitedly advised Vlad to watch carefully. He should see this. He concentrated on the movements of his mentor, and at the same moment he struck his sword upwards, which repelled the enemy's weapon, and this made him nervous. When he met his calm gaze, he became worried and angry at the same time, and then he pounced on him. A voice told him to look more closely. He made the opponent miss by dodging the attacks. This is what he calls a counterattack technique. MC admired it greatly and thought that this was a technique that deflects the opponent's attack and quickly counters using his own attack. At the same time, Jaeger won the duel. He brought his opponent to his knees. When he looked up at him, he gritted his teeth and realized that he was on a completely different level, which seemed insurmountable to him. He bowed his head and admitted that he lost. And after Sir Jaeger was declared the winner, Alicia sighed with relief, but everyone on her uncle's side did not look very pleased. It is understandable why. While Colin was getting up, Jaeger approached his student and asked, was he looking at him carefully? He smiled and thanked him for that, and then the final duel began. The two knights stepped forward and Pablo introduced himself, saying that he was from Arnstein. His opponent Hubert chuckled and said that they had already met, but Pablo insisted on a formal introduction before the fight, and Hubert from Shazad had to introduce himself under his threatening gaze. The Nameless One noted that Alicia had definitely found a good representative. Pablo was on par with Colin, but Hubert was a cut above them. Meanwhile, Hubert looked at Alicia strangely, which made her suspect something was wrong, and then unexpectedly for everyone, the knight bowed to her. This made Joseph nervous. He began to guess why he was bowing, and then the knight said something that no one on Alicia's side expected. He refused the duel, which betrayed his lady, and everyone became worried, but Joseph got angry, having figured out the cunning plan of the opponents. Satisfied, Endre clapped his hands and said that in that case the duel was over. Joseph's facial muscles tensed with emotion, and he thought, so he had 4 cards in his hand to begin with? Endre turned to the priest and asked him to admit to the gods that he was the only Heinel, but Joseph said that it was not over yet. Endre said smugly that Alicia's knight had refused the duel. He understood his feelings, but the duel was over. He told him that until he decided, the duel could not end. Bayezid was not going to accept any outcome that he had predetermined so easily. The nobles behind Endre began to whisper, suggesting that he at least listen to him. After all, he represented the north, and their knights obeyed the center. If something went wrong, then a conflict would arise between the north and the center. Endre agreed to listen to him and asked discontentedly what they should do then. Joseph thought that if the best outcome was no longer possible, then he would at least prefer to avoid the worst. Now the best result would only come from a confident blow. Only then could they plan for the future. He asked him to continue the duel. They could not allow Miss Alicia's reputation to suffer because of her deprivation of rights. Endre asked if they had someone to replace Sir Hubert, and if so, he would accept his request. Confident of his victory, he grinned and thought that Duncan was the only one of Alicia's knights. There was a written rule that guests were not allowed to bring too many knights with them. so duels would never take place. Joseph understood what he was thinking now and confidently said that they had someone. The man clearly did not expect this and was surprised by this, and Joseph pointed to Vlad and said that in the name of Miss Alicia's honor, he presented them a powerful warrior, Vlad of Sor. Andre exclaimed indignantly that he was not even a knight, so he was not worthy of participating in a duel. He answered him that anyone who had a weapon in their hands could participate in a duel of honor, and he objected to the men because his opponent would be a knight. They would send a vassal to dishonor Arnstein. Joseph lost his patience and turned to the nobles, shouting, "What about them? Would they allow this to happen, considering the honor of the Bayezid house? Would they dare to mock the Bayezid family with such a pathetic trick?" They immediately fell silent at his accusations, and Joseph confidently shouted that he vouched for him. Andre could not resist Bayezid's word and agreed, thinking, after all, what could a vassal do? Meanwhile, Jagger began to adjust Vlad's armor, and he asked in confusion, would he really participate in a duel with a knight? He confirmed this and he frowned slightly, asking, would he die? He answered him that if everything was going to that point, then he would intervene, and he asked, wouldn't that already be bad? His mentor decided to remain silent, and he, without waiting for an answer from him, began to get nervous and thought, why is he silent? Joseph came up to him, he called out to him and pulled him close, embracing him, which made MC feel embarrassed and excitedly said that he shouldn't have done that. But this was not a simple surge of tenderness on his part. He whispered to him to just hold out for 10 minutes. He had a plan from the beginning. He had already given the order to Borden. He just needed to buy them time. He clarified, would 10 minutes be enough? He told him that the more the better, and he said that he understood everything. He would try to hold out for this time. After that, the young master let him go and told him to be careful, and he resolutely stepped forward. Stopping in front of Alicia, he bowed to her and she nodded briefly. Although she was nervous, she did not show it. After that, Vlad turned to his opponent Pablo and took out his sword, introducing himself to him. This angered the knight. He threw the shield aside and said that he was not worthy of hearing his name. The moment an unworthy brat like him showed up here, this duel stopped being a duel of honor. MC hated that word worthy so much. Why do people always grab pretty and shiny things? He may have come from an unworthy place, but he was not going to give up that easily. He confidently gripped the sword and asked how he was inferior to him. What made him so different from him? The knight was speechless for a second at his words, and then said that the standards of the Bayezid family had fallen greatly. Vlad gave him a displeased look, and Pablo, taking out his sword, allowed him to ignore the rules of the duel and fight with all his might. He gave him an arrogant look and said that he would nip this in the bud. MC focused, preparing for the fight. Today, he was worthy of shining. Without a second thought, he made a sharp lunge forward, and his sword immediately collided with the enemy's blade. Noticing how his sword was shaking, Pablo frowned and then swung his weapon, parrying his blow. Because of this, Vlad had to step back, but he ran towards the enemy again. Because for the first time in his life, he raised his sword not for himself, but for someone else. The Nameless One advised him to aim to the left, where he was hiding behind his shield. Habit is a terrible thing. He followed his advice, and an exchange of blows began between them. The aristocrats noted that this guy was quite difficult, as well as how fast he was, and Andre watched all this with displeasure. When Pablo blocked the boy's blow again, he realized that he was natural. There was a rage in him like a hungry wolf. MC decided to take a little rest and catch his breath, and the knight said that he had a great spirit, but he was not up to it yet. Right after that, Vlad felt a sharp pressure from the enemy. He hit his sword from top to bottom and frowned. Now MC was on one knee and barely holding his sword, helping himself with his other hand. Gritting his teeth, he thought that he was being hit with stones. Pablo decided not to stand on ceremony with him anymore and raised his sword over his head, asking, "Is he done with his tricks?" He swung his sword from top to bottom, delivering a blow, which Vlad blocked again. He continued to stand on one knee and defend himself, and then the voice advised him not to block, but to attack. He needed to try to somehow parry his blows. He wanted to do at least something, but the enemy's blade was faster, and he had to block the blow again. But this time, his arms and sword couldn't take it anymore. He was thrown to the side, and hit his back and head hard on the wall, causing him to cry out in pain and fall to one knee. While he was trying to recover from the blow, Pablo came up to him and said that it was impressive, but it was still far from over. He could still resist him. He raised his sword over one and said that it was a pity that they met here. Let him go later. MC gritted his teeth, feeling the impending defeat, and even the Nameless One believed in his loss and said that he tried hard. But Vlad wasn't going to lose so easily. When the opponent's sword was very close, he swung his weapon and parried the blow, causing a loud clang of steel. Jaeger, who was about to go to help his student, froze in surprise, and the others opened their mouths in shock, not believing their eyes. Pablo frowned and, remembering Sir Jaeger's movements, wondered if he had used a counterattack. He gave the boy time to get up, and surprised voices were heard from all sides. They all didn't understand how some vassal could parry the knight's sword. Endre took it as a simple coincidence and advised the others to look at his condition. He couldn't even lift his sword. But Pablo thought otherwise. It couldn't be a coincidence. He had personally encountered this sword, and even he had a hard time accepting it. After catching his breath, MC muttered something quietly, and Pablo looked at him, wondering if he had gone crazy. He continued to talk, and he, looking into his empty eyes, realized that he was mired in memories. Now Vlad remembered how he stood in front of the forge and looked at the sword until his feet sank into the ground. He was a boy who didn't deserve all this, but always wanted to shine. He wanted to be capable. He hoped that he would get the opportunity. He dreamed of becoming worthy and going to a shining place far beyond the slums. He gritted his teeth and confidently said that he wanted to be there too. And then Pablo was surprised and thought that this flower was almost blooming, a beautiful flower that no one had seen before. After that, their swords clashed again in battle, and a loud clang echoed throughout the room, and all the nobles froze. Vlad's hands were bleeding, but he still continued to confidently hold the sword, and Jaeger was surprised. He did not expect that he would repeat the movements he had recently shown him. He demonstrated it to him only to understand the importance of the basics, but he can't believe that he can already use it. Meanwhile, his student rushed into battle with fury, and Pablo parried his blow. He noted that the blade of the sword had lost its sharpness. Instead, it was filled with an unwavering will. He looked at the boy's face and thought it was so funny. Now he wonders what the will is directed at. The moment MC got closer to him, he noticed that his sword was vibrating and making a strange sound, and he was surprised. The sword was crying? That couldn't be it. It was shining. His sword began to sparkle, and then Pablo decided to fulfill his knightly duty and confidently struck. He continued to attack, and in his mind he told the boy to continue blocking and holding on, so that his world was about to bloom. His sword clanged along Vlad's blade, causing sparks to appear, and the nobles, noticing something, were very surprised. Vlad's sword began to emit a white flame, an aura, and everyone realized what had just happened. Pablo excitedly turned to his squire and ordered him to bring him his shield immediately, and the awkward boy immediately ran up to him. The knight grabbed the shield, then struck it with his sword and told MC his name, saying that he was a worthy boy who deserved to know it. So let him tell his name. Before saying his name, he thought, he is a boy born in an unworthy place, but he made his way through his past to where everything shines brightly. And finally, having found himself in this shining place, he proved himself worthy. His eyes, fixed on this shine, sparkled blue, and he shouted his name, and at the same time an aura flared up around him, because of which everyone present had to cover their eyes from the bright light. Pablo in response used his aura and ordered him to come to him, after which MC with a furious cry rushed into battle, and their swords, decorated with the flames of the aura, clashed. In the end, Vlad emerged from the fight as a loser. Putting him on his knee, Pablo said with a smile that he did well, but he could no longer hear his words, since he lost consciousness. Andre exclaimed in displeasure that it was an aura, and using it during a duel is forbidden, so he is disqualified. Pablo looked at him with displeasure and thought that he was too pathetic. Even though there was a beautiful flower in front of him, he was only thinking about the fruits that his defeat would bring. He noticed Joseph and Sir Jaeger walking towards him. They both thanked him for doing his duty as a knight, and he told them that he just did what he had to do. It was an honor for him. Joseph turned to the priest and asked, "Was that an aura?" He excitedly confirmed it, and the young master asked, "Then, between the rules of the sacred duel and the code of the Swordmaster, which is more important?" As soon as he mentioned the code of the Swordmaster, the priest let out an excited sigh. And then Joseph said that there is a code associated with this prestigious title, Swordmaster, which only one person in history has possessed. The code of the Swordmaster is honor and duty, and it is related to royalty. After that, he turned to Endre and said that the code and the rules are interconnected. So which is higher, honor or duty? No one can choose one. He thinks that today's incident should be lent to the Holy See and Crown. Until they make a decision, they should postpone determining the outcome of the duel. The code states that everything young and tender in this world has the right to blossom with dignity. Potential is beautiful, and those who can show it to the world themselves are precious. So moments like these must be cherished. All those who hold the sword of honor swear by the name of Frausen that they will fulfill their duty. As master of the sword and founding king, Frausen declares this his first code. A new day has dawned. MC finally came to his senses. The bright sunlight hit him in the eyes and he winced, calling out to Geta and asking him for water. The man sitting next to him poured him water, and he groaned, saying that every bone in his body ached. The man told him to take a glass, and he, hearing a familiar voice, immediately jumped out of bed. In front of him was Joseph. He said with a smile that he was glad that he was regaining his strength, and Vlad asked him for forgiveness. He told him that he did not need to apologize, let him relax. He gave him some water and asked if he had any pain, especially badly somewhere. He told him that he was fine, and then Joseph thanked him. To be honest, he didn't even imagine that he was capable of such a thing. Thanks to him, the duel was postponed. He asked him what he meant by postponing the duel, and he told him that it meant that the duel was postponed for now and did not come to any result. The situation became more complicated since the rules of the sacred duel and the code of the Master Sword intersected. Vlad remembered about this code. The voice once told him about it. Joseph said that according to the code, in order to become a knight, you need to take an oath. If everything goes well, then one day he will take this oath too. This news made MC excited. He already imagined how he, as a knight, would ride a black horse and wave a banner. Joseph stood up from his chair and hoped that he would be okay. It would be problematic to stay here for a long time. He told him that he was okay, he could get up right now, but he didn't even let him finish and said that he wouldn't let him do that. Because he was one of those who appreciated what was deserved. The sun had already begun to set behind the horizon. Alicia was looking out the window and thinking about something of her own. She asked her knight what was going on with the guests, and he told her that they had already left. She said that it was a pity. She couldn't pay them due attention. Had her uncle left too? He told her that the duel had been postponed. He had asked the church for personal protection through the priest. The girl frowned and said that she couldn't believe that she had just let those who wanted to arrange her downfall leave so calmly. Her heart sank from this. Duncan assured her that she would have time for this later. Troubled times require that a person take the time to gather her strength. It is important to gain complete control over the city. She became sad and said that it was her duty, after which she asked how the lemon harvest was going. When she learned that everything was not going very well, she noticed that the yield continued to fall and asked for advice. Maybe they should start planting more barley? He suggested that she wait a little. One cannot just decide to change the production structure. She agreed with him. He was right. It was indeed a difficult decision to make like this. She sighed heavily and thought that after the court issue was resolved, she had one more case to deal with. When she opened her eyes, something interesting caught her attention, and she turned to Duncan, asking, "Most knights can ride, right?" He confirmed this, adding that one cannot call oneself a knight if one cannot ride. It is as important as a sword. She smiled and said that it seemed that the gods had not given him everything. He did not understand what she was talking about and went to the window. Seeing Vlad under the balcony, who was trying to saddle a horse, he said that he understood Sir Jaeger's pain. In the end, the horse did not want some boy to sit on it, and MC fell to the ground, painfully hitting his tailbone. While he winced in pain, his mentor said that he could do everything on expensive horses. He answered him that the horse should probably be even more expensive, which made the knight angry and immediately taught him a lesson, telling him to think first and then speak. He screamed in pain and, clutching the back of his head, said that he had definitely managed to mount the horse last time, but Goethe had ridden it. The guy confirmed this. He was definitely riding. Jagger frowned and thought that this was serious. He thought it would work if he taught him himself. He looked at the horse that Goethe was currently calming down and thought, is it really that? But even his horse was running away from him, as if there was something scary in front of him. He looked at his student and announced the end of classes for today, and he asked if they would train tomorrow. When he said that they would skip tomorrow's training too, Vlad was disappointed and asked when he would be able to ride. Jagger said that they would put it off for now, and he noted with displeasure that he had heard this many times before. Jagger asked if this was a problem for him. He confirmed it, and he sighed heavily, saying that there was no quick solution. They would think about it when they returned to Sturma, but for now he had things to do. He left, and Goethe looked suspiciously at MC and asked why the horses hated him more and more. He asked in response, what if it doesn't work with expensive horses either? Then the guy suggested that he ride a cow. They are definitely dumber than horses. Vlad didn't like his mockery and asked, was he making fun of one? Let him think first and then speak. Goethe advised him to pay attention to himself, otherwise he would continue to ride in a carriage. He was sure Sir Jaeger would like it. He took the horse by the reins and said with a grin that he would take this famous gentleman to the stable. It seemed that the horse laughed at him too, and he wondered what the problem could be. The voice asked, maybe the problem was that he was moving too fast? Animals are more sensitive to this. He needed to learn to control his speed of movement. This is one of the ways to control the psychic world. If he learned to use mana freely, he would be able to control the speed of movement. He thought about his words and said that he couldn't even use it consciously yet, and his aura itself was weak. The voice said that it was natural. Using it in real battles required training and skill. Let him remember Jaeger's words. He had better not run until he learned to walk. He sighed heavily and took his words into account. then remembered that they would be returning to Sturma after tomorrow's farewell ceremony, and looked at the tree, wondering if he should go there one last time. Meanwhile, Jubert walked down the corridor, thinking that he had failed the task, but he was sure his lord would understand once he heard him out. You can't blame the sea for the waves. After all, it was an unforeseen situation. But the more he thought about it, the more he laughed. And some vassal did this? As he took a few more steps forward, the light reflected from someone else's blade fell on his eyes, and he, without much surprise, looked down at the sword at his neck and told Jaeger that he had greeted him so aggressively. But he didn't have to go that far. He replied that he thought it was worth it, and asked if he had waited long for him. "You have nothing better to do?" He replied that he had a day off today, and the knight asked if that was a waste of a day off. He replied with displeasure that he had to work extra hours on the weekend, and Jubert said that he understood that he was displeased, but he had no choice. The knight mockingly said that it was such a coincidence, and he didn't really have a choice either. Then Jubert activated his aura, touched his sword, and pulled him aside, saying that they were doing the same job. He should at least understand him. Jaeger's aura flared up in response too, and Jubert asked what he could do. If the master told him to bark, then he would bark. When he didn't answer, the knight chuckled and then raised his hands and said that he thought that was enough of a warning. Others called him swordsman. But that's not really true. He is a dog who only bites when his master tells him to. If he is done barking, then let him enjoy his weekend. The slightest bloodshed would mean a declaration of war on the Shahzad family. Before he could finish speaking, the man's fist hit him in the face, causing him to lose his footing and fall to the floor. After that, Jaeger said that his master was a good man, so he could bite him a little. Jubert wiped his mouth and asked if that was enough, but it was not at all. Jaeger punched him in the gut, causing him to let out a painful sigh, then fell to his knees and started coughing. The knight said that since they were from the same industry, he was sure he would understand. Jubert smiled nervously and said that in fact, it should be enough. The knight told them that he hoped that they would meet again, because once was not enough for him to pay for mocking his master. Recovering from his blow, the knight rose to his feet and said that sooner or later they would meet. The empire was falling apart. Now people do not unite by their own will. Holding the place where he hit, he walked past him and waved goodbye. Because of his words, Jaeger thought, soon there will come a time when the sword will be needed most. Meanwhile, MC climbed the hill and approached the tree. He looked at it and said to the nameless one that it was as if it were his old friend. Let him try to talk to it. The voice said that to be honest, he cannot believe that the snake recognized him. He himself was surprised by this. Vlad stood in a prayer pose and suggested that he quickly take a look at it and leave before Miss Alicia came here. After which the nameless one entered his body, and when MC opened his eyes, he saw a snake very close, which inadvertently scared him. The snake did not move, only carefully examined him, and he nervously asked, "Is this his friend?" The nameless one hoped for it, and then the snake began to crawl around him, and Vlad confusedly assumed that it must be showing that it is glad to see him. He hesitantly agreed with it, and then the snake stopped and winked at him, wagging the tip of its tail. MC did not understand why it behaved like this, and the voice told him not to even try to understand spirits. They are another form of the world. It is only obvious that the weak soul of a mortal cannot understand everything that surrounds the world. The snake continued to happily wave its head and tail, and at one point it opened its mouth wide, after which a blue glow began to emanate from the nearby vegetation. It rose to the tree and a bright flash arose. Soon sparks began to fall from the top of it, and Vlad, reaching out his hand to them, felt warmth. He felt it throughout his body and looked down, seeing that these sparks literally covered him. The voice said that it was amazing. He did not expect to see the forgotten enigma. This is the blessing of the spirit. The white snake smiled at him one last time, after which they said goodbye. It was time to leave. Everyone went out to say goodbye to Bayezid. Alicia said that she was very embarrassed to see them leave like this. She would like to have a big feast. Joseph said that her wish was enough for them. Now it was time for them to patch up the holes in the Heinal family. She thanked him for his help and he bowed to her in respect, saying that it was time for them to go. But Duncan remembered something and asked them to wait a minute, then called MC and told him to come forward. He looked at him in surprise, hesitating to do so, and only when he received permission from Joseph did he come forward. Jaeger told his master that they must have prepared a ceremony. He told him that it looked like it, but he asked them for a simple farewell. Meanwhile, Duncan told Vlad to kneel, and Alicia said that she was very grateful to him. Without him, she would not be here now. He defended her honor, shed light on a duel tainted by fraud. No thanks would be enough. She handed him her handkerchief and said that therefore, although he was not a knight, she would like to entrust her name to him. A man who turned out to be nobler than a knight. Joseph knew where she was going with this. She was a smart woman. She wants to cement her relationship with Bayezid with a prospect like Vlad. She is expressing gratitude and receiving benefits at the same time. MC meanwhile looked at the handkerchief, not knowing what to do, and thought that it was definitely very valuable. Should he just accept it? He remembered Jaeger's words when he scolded him for not taking Rudiger's peanuts. If a nobleman gives him something, then he should accept it. It's simple politeness. Realizing that he can't stand another scolding from him, he took the handkerchief from her hands and thanked her for those words. Everyone present let out a surprised sigh. Jaeger covered his face in shame, and Joseph smiled nervously and said that he can't believe it. He grew up in the back streets, so he knows nothing about the lives of aristocrats. Duncan confusedly approached Vlad and said that he shouldn't do that. It turns out that a lady can give a handkerchief as a sign of her respect in two ways, by hanging it on the hilt of a sword or by handing it over. The first is a sign of respect, and the second is a sign of love. But MC, out of ignorance, took the handkerchief from her hands and looking at her face, which was embarrassed for some reason unknown to him, still did not understand what he had done wrong. Everyone present was speechless, and Vlad looked at their faces, after which he hesitantly said that he would definitely find a use for this handkerchief. They set off, and Joseph told Vlad everything. He had not been so upset for a long time, although he himself was very much to blame. He thinks he cannot worry about money for a long time. MC felt ashamed and asked him for forgiveness, after which his mentor appeared in the carriage window and discontentedly told him to look at him if an aristocrat gives him something. Did he understand everything? He told him that he would keep that in mind, and Joseph said that he had something to congratulate him on anyway. He was now a man respected by a high-ranking aristocrat, Lady Alicia, so he was promoted to the rank of honorary knight. Vlad was very surprised by this news. He didn't believe that he had become an honorary knight so easily. Joseph said that only in places where his name was recognized would he be treated as a knight. MC was very excited by this news. The very word knight delighted him. Joseph said that of course this was limited to Durmar because she had just become a baroness. Vlad understood everything and was a little disappointed, but quickly realized that it made sense. He would never become a knight so easily. He looked at the handkerchief and the young master said that he had received it by mistake, but he should never lose it, because it was not just a handkerchief, but Alicia's honor. He asked what would happen if he lost it, and he answered him seriously that he would be responsible for it himself. Because something like that could only happen because he took it with both hands. MC flinched, his eyes showing that it would be more than he could handle. He promised him that he would never lose it, and then Joseph showed him the promissory note, smiling and saying that it had all ended in an absurd way, but thanks to him, he no longer needed it. This document stated that Alicia had borrowed 10,000 gold. Vlad asked why she needed such an amount, and he answered that it was a way to protect her soldiers in case she lost the duel. If she lost her status, she would have surrendered herself. This was the only way to save her from Endre. Of course, in reality, she had not taken anything. He asked, so he decided to control Miss Alicia? Losing the duel would mean losing the right to succeed. He told him that the reason was like a spark in the ashes. One encounter with the wind was enough to reignite it. If Alicia was within the reach of the Bayezid family, Endre would not be able to help but feel the pressure. Now MC understood at least a little how aristocrats lived in search of excuses. Suddenly he turned around, hearing some strange sound. Joseph asked what was the matter, and he told him that he heard something from the forest to the west. For a while everything was quiet, but then there was a rumble, like the clatter of hooves, and dust rose behind the hill. Cavalry was running towards them at full speed. This made Vlad nervous. They were heading straight for them and did not slow down. He thought they were bandits and took out his sword, but Joseph stopped him and ordered him to put it away. He had prepared for this before the duel began. The cavalry stopped, the riders dismounted and knelt before Joseph. Their commander placed a bloody sack in front of him and said that they had arrived late because they were collecting their fair wages. He looked down and asked with displeasure, was this it? He asked them for something else. He praised him for his excellent work and ordered him to stand up. Then the man looked at Vlad and asked with a smile, was he the vassal who had received Lady Alicia's recognition into his hands? Rumors about this had spread throughout the land. Learning that this had become known so quickly, Joseph was slightly upset and confirmed it, saying that they would admire him later. MC, meanwhile, looked at the man in surprise. But when he noticed his gaze, he felt from him precisely the knightly aura, the spirit of danger that permeates the back streets, and that made him nervous. This is what his instinct tells him. You can't joke with him. Joseph offered them to go with them since they were returning to Sturma, but the man refused, since they were in a hurry. The young master thanked him for his service, and he, in a sign of respect, put his hand to his chest, said that he only remained loyal to the Bayezid as their hidden sword. From this Vlad was surprised and thought, what kind of people are these? And what is in this bag? Noticing his gaze, Joseph asked, is he interested in what is in there? He confirmed to him, and he said that there is a world of aristocrats, a world of cold, cruelty, and unforgiveness. In this bag was found the head of Endre. Time passed. The Count was busy with business, and Ragmus informed him that apparently a group of pilgrims was passing through Sturma. Peter asked if he should greet them, and he told him that it did not seem like they wanted to. They said that they would just calmly look at the dragon's trail and leave. The Count thought, the voices of the gods, wanting nothing? It had been a long time since he had seen such sincere pilgrims. He said that it would be nice to keep an eye on them without their knowledge, and the old man said that he knew he would say so. Peter smiled faintly and remarked that therefore he enjoyed what he deserved. In this case, Ragmus decided to prepare everything, and the Count said that he wanted to talk about his second son and Vlad. He had heard that this time they had accomplished a great feat. The old man confirmed it, the report mentioned it, even his heart beat faster. The Count crossed his arms thoughtfully. It had been a long time since he had heard of the first code of the Swordmaster. An elite education, beginning with the selection of men of proven pedigree and talent, the rough diamonds were handled with the utmost care. So, it was rare to see them go to such extremes as the appeal to the first code. He said it must have been rare to see knights raised with such care before. The old man had said he would have liked it if he had been there, and he had replied that it was not only him. He was sure there were some who would have liked it too. He was reminded of the golden generation of Bayezid. At this rate, the old men would spoil the newcomers. Ragmus had said he was sure young Master Joseph would like it, and Peter had thought he was gasping for air so much that he had thought he had given up. But he had crawled through the mud and brought back something shiny. He had a lot to think about, because in the end, he had to choose only one of his sons. Time passed, and conversations about Vlad began in the dining room among the vassals. Rumors of what had happened in Durmar had already reached them, but they did not believe that this homeless street vagabond was able to create an inner world and use an aura. Sovanen and his friends would have joined in the ridicule now, but after that fight, they decided to say more and say a word against him. The door to the dining room opened. MC walked inside thinking that he was simply dying of hunger. How much time had passed? A month? As soon as he entered, the conversations immediately stopped, and he thoughtfully looked at the vassals. Whether they were from noble families or not, whether there was a big difference in their status or not, it did not matter anymore. Because the childish fights in the back alleys ended with the appearance of the only person who had ended up in another world. Having put more sausages on himself, Vlad began to eat. But feeling many glances on himself, he said that it was hard for him to eat like this. Portly said that it would probably be like this for some time. Everyone knows about everything that happened in Durmar. He licked his fingers and noted that rumors travel fast, after which the guy asked what he was going to do on vacation. Judging by MC's reaction, he didn't know about vacation at all. And then Portly told him that they get 2 vacations a year. All the students are already going on vacation this week. Vlad thoughtfully rubbed his chin and asked, is he leaving too then? After all, he is not from a noble family, so he has nowhere to go. Portly saw this as an opportunity, and happily invited him to go to his house. His father said that he wanted to formally invite him. In fact, he had never had a friend before. He asked, so he doesn't have such a long track record? He enthusiastically said that they have a very hospitable house, and they can also provide him with unlimited access to baked meat. Noticing that Vlad was thinking, he decided to dispel all his doubts, saying that he heard that he was looking for a horse. He told him what his family does. They can find him a horse. MC immediately looked at him with interest, and he said that he recalled hearing about several horses with a better pedigree than Sir Jagger's horse. His eyes lit up with anticipation, and he confidently said that he would make sure that he was given a vacation at any cost. It was time for training. Vlad parried another blow from his mentor and clenched his teeth. Noticing this, he advised him to concentrate and delivered another blow, which he blocked, causing his arm to be pulled to the side. Then MC pointed the tip of his sword at him, which angered his mentor, and he hit him in the back without holding back, and he immediately lost his balance and fell. Jagger said that he definitely didn't tell him to try to do something that can't happen. Does he think he became something special after the duel with the knight? Has he become a trifle to him and can no longer be listened to? Vlad realized what his mistake was, and when he turned around, he was faced with a menacing gaze from the knight and became nervous. He immediately stood up and put his hands behind his back, asking him for forgiveness, and he told him not to come if he thought he was being forced to train, and not to look for him if he thought he could handle it himself. They were done for today. He could go. He nodded and walked out of the arena, upset. Watching him go, Jagger thought that what he had achieved so far was admirable, but it was a grain of sand on the beach. Nothing more than something impermanent that could be washed away by a big wave at any moment. It was very unreliable. After training, MC headed to his room and a voice told him that he was right. He needed to start from the basics. He would have been angry with him too. He answered him, upset, that he just wanted to try it again, and then the voice said that not all knights could use aura. But that doesn't mean that knights who can't use aura are inferior. Aura is just the embodiment of the potential of growth abilities. He can't forget that he picked up a sword not long ago. Great flowers only bloom on a solid foundation. He wasn't the type of person who wouldn't get angry at him even if he deserved it. Let him think about his mentor's words again. He sighed heavily and agreed. He was used to disdain and ridicule, but he saw disappointment in his eyes back then. Because of this, he became even more upset and thought that this look hurt more than a blow from a wooden sword. The voice reminded him that he hadn't even talked about taking a vacation, and he became flustered when he thought about it. But because of his oversight, he decided to forget about it. After all, what's the point of going on vacation under these circumstances? He thinks that today he will have to swing his sword until he can't think of anything else. Instead of going to his room, he went outside the estate to a small forest where he could practice swinging his sword alone. He raised the weapon above his head and then slashed down with all his might, leaving a mark on the ground. He wiped away the sweat, caught his breath, and a voice said that that was enough for today. He had reached his limit. If he burned out too quickly, he would become exhausted. And if he got injured, all his previous efforts would go down the drain. He agreed with it and warmed up, then looked at the moon, which was shining so brightly in the sky, and realized that he, too, had finally been able to achieve that glow. Jaeger had been watching him from the walls of the fortress the whole time. Noticing that he was looking at the moon, he immediately looked up and mentally noted that he was like a wolf chasing the moon. Meanwhile, the county of Ravnoma, Trinova, was burning in flames and screams could be heard everywhere. And in the throne room, the battle was still raging. Almost all the knights fell to the sword of the unknown, only one survived. His enemy walked towards him and said that he had wondered where he was. He had done his best on his last mission. He came closer to him, and he clenched his teeth in rage, noting that after all, he had come all the way here. Godin stood in front of him. The man said that his lord's orders came first, and his own honor came second. He was sure that this was not blindly following orders. Count Gaidar's knights were not like that. Godin told him that this was why they were all dead, and the man said that one day his light would go out. Let him tell Count Gaidar that he would be waiting for him in hell. Raising his sword over him, Godin agreed to his last request, and then took his life. A new day dawned. Joseph called Vlad to him and allowed him to go on vacation, which surprised him a little. He asked, wasn't he invited to Canner's house? MC asked him how he knew about it, and he told him that rumors spread quickly. Sir Gregory's apprentice was talking about it everywhere enthusiastically. Vlad imagined the chain of people through which this news reached his master, and he said that he was planning to give him a vacation anyway. He even had somewhere to go, so he had no reason not to let him go. MC thanked him and cautiously looked at his mentor, who was completely ignoring him. Noticing this, Joseph smiled slightly and guessed that something happened between them. He could easily remove this awkwardness, but he must respect their relationship, so he will leave it as is. Vlad, meanwhile, was very awkward, so much so that it began to choke him. He was about to pay his respects and leave, but Jaeger said that even if it was a vacation, a knight should never forget about his sword. MC didn't expect to hear anything from him, and was slightly surprised, agreeing with his words. And the man said that only he would know about a day without training, but if he missed a week, the others would know too. He knew that he was not one to shirk training just because he didn't tell him, but he still needed to monitor such moments so that he would not go astray. He said that he would look at him when he returned, and Vlad lit up them with a cheerful smile. Joseph advised him not to put too much hope in the horse, since his problem might be too difficult, even for the Canner house. First, he needed to find out the reason why the horses didn't like him, and if any were friendly to him, then let him know what region they were from. He allowed him to leave, and reminded him that they would see each other in a week, but before he left, he told him not to bring him any gifts. MC smiled nervously and said that he understood everything, then thought, does this mean that he needs a gift? Then he really liked the Hammond from Portly. After he left, Joseph thought about the Canner house, and Jaeger said that if all goes well, they can become friends. He told him that it is possible, they both stand out very much. The knight asked, don't they need it? His master thought for a second, then said that he is not the type to ask if someone has something he needs, but he is not going to give it to him. Before leaving for vacation, Vlad somehow ended up in Lady Oksana's room. While the servants tried on the cloak on him, he wondered what he was doing here again. Lady Oksana smiled and said that it was a very beautiful color. It goes well with the leather armor. He is very sturdy, so whatever he wears suits him. He looked down in embarrassment and thanked her, and she asked if he was going on holiday to Canner house. When you are invited to someone's house, you have to look your best. It is politeness so that his parents are not criticized. He was surprised by her words, and she came up to him and put her hands on his shoulders, telling him not to let her be criticized. Realizing that she took him for her son, he was surprised. Looking at her gentle smile, he lowered his head and told her that he understood everything. She promised him that after the holiday she would hire him a tutor. One mistake, as he took the handkerchief from the lady's hands with his hand, was enough. He smiled awkwardly and asked her forgiveness for it, and she said that his status as a knight made him an honorable and noble man, so he should behave accordingly. She waved her hand to the servant. She brought a basket of lemons to them, and the lady told him to take this with him. Joseph had brought this. It was impolite to come to visit empty-handed after all. He bowed to her and thanked her for her thoughtfulness, after which she smiled and told him to have a good rest and come back. As he left the room, he noticed his reflection in the window glass and remembered what he used to be like. It made him feel out of place, as if he was wearing clothes that didn't suit him. He also remembered his childhood friend, who should be in the monastery now. He wondered how she was doing, and walked forward down the corridor, thinking that he was sure that she, like him, was wearing clothes that didn't suit her. Meanwhile, even in the monastery, rumors began to spread about a famous vassal of the Bayezid house who was emitting an aura in Durmar. While the nuns were chatting about this, Zemina was scrubbing the floor with a brush, and when she heard them talking about a blonde man with blue eyes, her wounded and calloused hand froze. One of the nuns said that he might even be from a noble family. He released an aura at such a young age, he might even become a Knight of the North. Zemina thought that it must be someone else, because Vlad couldn't have succeeded so quickly. She would have been happy if he was just alive and well. Noticing that she had stopped, the nuns ordered her to keep working with displeasure. How dare she slack off when she hadn't helped them at all? She would have to work here all her life. Let her finish quickly and wash the dishes if she didn't want the abbess to scold her. They started to mock her, saying that she had nowhere to go, so it wouldn't hurt to get used to manual labor in advance. They left and finally told her to finish everything by dinner. And she, continuing to wash the floor, smirked and said that she seemed to have learned everything well, back in Rose's smile. Her gaze dimmed as she remembered how she had gotten here. Marcella had brought her here with the other girls, but the abbess did not want to let them in so easily. After all, this was a place close to God. They could not accept girls working in a dirty place. Marcella assured them that this was absolutely not true. Bishop himself looked after them. But even so, they could not accept them into the monastery so suddenly, and she exclaimed indignantly, "Why not? She constantly donated so much money to this place. It was enough to feed them all for 10 years and still have some left." The abbess wanted to object, but fell silent, still deciding to accept them. Zemina asked Marcella if she would go with them, but she said that they would go inside first. The girls went to the nuns, after which the abbess raised her hand, stopping Marcella and forbade her to go with them. She said that she had not expected this and asked her to take care of the children. They were good workers. Suddenly, the screams of bandits who were chasing them were heard from the forest. Noticing them, she excitedly ordered the girls to quickly go inside, and then the man grabbed her by the hair and her hand, saying that he finally caught her. Nuns, frightened, began to push the children inside, and Zemina, seeing what they were doing to Marcella, with tears in her eyes, screamed her name and extended her hand to her. The man dragged her by the hair behind him, and Zemina moved further and further away from her, unable to help her, and so she found herself locked in this monastery. Because of these memories, she burst into tears and she began to miss Vlad. In the meantime, he arrived at the Canner estate and looked around, surprisedly thinking, they are not aristocrats, but they have influence in Sturma? Why is their estate so huge? The butler and a couple of servants met Portly, and he, with joy, spreading his arms to the side, ran up to him and hugged him, saying that he missed him so much. The old man smiled and said that it was so nice to see him after so long. Taking his hands, Portly asked where his father was, and he told him that he had gone to meet guests who had arrived on an unexpected visit. He looked at Vlad and offered him to look at the pride of their family, the farm, if he did not mind. He was not at all against it, and the butler thanked him. But first MC wanted to look at the horse, and added that he had high expectations for this. The butler agreed and said that the head of the family would show him the best horses, but it would not hurt him to see the rest as well. After that, he walked him to the pasture, but as soon as he approached the horses, they got very scared and started to run. Vlad decided to try his luck with the bulls, but they also ran away, as did the sheep. In the end, all the animals in the pasture simply ran away. Because of this, he was very upset. Not only the horses were afraid of him, but also the riding bulls. But why the sheep too? The butler said that the situation was quite serious. Had he tried going to church? He told him that he was not cursed. The priest Andreas vouched for him. The old man asked him for forgiveness, and he, looking at the horses, thought, what was the point of using aura? He couldn't even ride a horse. He sighed and asked upset, while everyone looked cool on horseback, he would walk behind, in the dust. Portly wanted to support him and advised him to look at the horses on the farm. For fighting, riding, work, whatever he wanted, he would show him any. Couldn't there be a suitable horse here? MC answered him hesitantly that there had to be at least one. and Portly said that they had a wonderful horse that he had never seen before. It had the best pedigree of all the horses that his father had. He would persuade him to show it to him. He still had not managed to cheer up his friend and patted him on the shoulder, offering him to go for a walk tomorrow, but first they would have dinner and rest. Evening came. It was time for a delicious dinner. Portly led his guest to the kitchen, where the cooks were busy preparing meat. He was surprised by such a sight and noted that his family was clearly not modest. He smiled sheepishly and scratched the back of his head, and then the head of the family himself, Orson Kanner, appeared in the kitchen. He greeted Vlad with a wide smile and asked him for forgiveness for not being able to personally receive such a dear guest. He greeted him respectfully in return and introduced himself to him, and the man said that he knew him. Rumors were flying all over Sturma. He patted him on the back and welcomed him to his home, and thought that this guy had awakened the Swordmaster code for the first time in a long time. He was the new star, the pride of Sturma, and his son had made such a great friend. He suggested that they go inside and chat while dinner was being prepared. As a host, he is very happy to welcome important guests. MC remembered that they had guests and wondered if they would be joining them. When the man mentioned that they were all Bayezid, he was slightly surprised and began to wonder who this mysterious guest was. They walked into the main hall, and Vlad's eyes widened in surprise. Rudiger was sitting by the fireplace, flanked by his knights. He told Vlad that they had not seen each other for a long time and asked how he was doing. He and Portly greeted him respectfully, and he said that he did not expect to see him here. Rudiger said that he was not sure that he would want to dine with him tonight, but he had heard that the food prepared was too good to refuse. MC felt uneasy and wondered why he had insisted on not eating the peanuts, and glanced at his knights, who were looking at him with disdain. He thought that he seemed to have won him over. But that's no wonder. They hate him because he didn't accept Rudiger's kindness. And about his subordinates, he beat up every single one of their disciples, so it's bad. If they threaten him, he's finished. He agreed to have dinner with him tonight, since he was also looking forward to it, and Rudiger asked, "Is that so?" Meeting his calm and confident gaze, he smiled slightly and said that he heard that he was on vacation. Does he have free time tomorrow? He invited him to go somewhere with him, and the next day they set off. Everyone was riding horses, only he was sitting in the carriage and looking at the man riding next to him with a bored expression. A beastman named Dorothea, a mage in Rudiger's group, noticed his gaze and asked with displeasure, why was he looking at her? He had never seen anyone like her? He said nonchalantly that there was a first time for everything, and she agreed with him, since it would be weirder if he saw. She heard that he was from the slums of Sor. How did he become a vassal of Bayezid? He asked back, what was the big deal? Compared to being a beastman mage Rudiger, his question made her angry, but she didn't show it and asked, did he really use aura? How could he not ride a horse when he could emit aura? Even his friend rides a horse. He told her boredly that life showed that anything can happen, and she said that it still seemed doubtful. He was already tired of this grumbling and looked away, thinking that he was here only because he came on an unplanned vacation, and suddenly they decided to go hawk hunting. Dorothea asked, was he even listening to her? Because of this question, she began to irritate him even more. And he asked, are all beastmen so talkative? She called it racial discrimination, and then he asked, are all mages so talkative? She said that it was occupational discrimination, and Rudiger, overhearing their conversation, told her to stop bothering him. It was already difficult for him to persuade him. She responded by saying that every time he looked at her, he had such a suffering look. He laughed and told her that everyone would be like that if she started pestering him like that. She lowered her ears in frustration, and one of the knights pointed somewhere to the side and suggested that his master hunt there. He said that this place looked good, an open area so that the whole area was visible. After listening to them, Portly said that it seemed that they would hunt from here, and Vlad, looking at them, did not see any signs that they planned to do so, because they still had not even released the hawk from the cage. One of the knights pointed to a crowd of people walking nearby, and Rudiger said that they were lucky. He couldn't believe that he would see pilgrims here. He ordered his men to raise a flag and warn them of their intentions, so that they would not think that they were in danger. As soon as the flag with the banner of the House of Bayezid was raised, he suggested that they find a victim. Meanwhile, horses were grazing nearby. Among them there was a remarkable one, a black one. It stood on a hill and carefully watched the situation around, and when some strange sound was heard, it looked down from the cliff. There was a giant death worm. It turned out that the pilgrims were walking below, and Rudiger's detachment was following them from above. Vlad immediately realized that this was not a hunt. Any fool would understand that this was an escort. First of all, this was not falconry. His thought was interrupted when the cart suddenly jumped and shook him, which made him feel sick, and he decided to continue on foot. When he got out of the cart, his friend asked him how he was, and he told him that everything was not so bad. His heart was just pounding. He asked if it was because the cart was shaking so much. He told him that it was not at all. He would walk a little and he would feel better. He looked around with a smile and said that there was a great view. Portly agreed with him and said that he really wanted to show him this. The meadows stretch all the way to Varn. Sometimes monsters appear, but this year, thanks to Master Joseph, there is no need to worry about it. He explained that it is due to the hunt, in which he also participated last winter. MC smiled and said that he also contributed to this landscape then. A cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. He was interested in it, and then a loud clatter was heard. A whole herd of horses was running straight towards them, and that same black horse was leading them. When Vlad saw him, his heart seemed to skip a beat, and he, putting his hand to his chest, began to wonder what was wrong. They all continued to run. Rudiger noticed them and said that this herd of wild horses, those same healthy horses. But now they were just uninvited guests. But he noticed something strange. Why were they all running south? Hearing this, his knights tensed up and one of them said that he was right. This was very strange. At this time of year they should be moving north where there was more greenery. The horses did not slow down, and Rudiger noticed that they were in a strange hurry, as if someone was chasing them. At this moment, MC's heart began to pound even harder. At the sight of that black horse, he seemed to turn to stone. But why? He met the horse's gaze, and then there was a jolt. Everyone thought it was an earthquake, but only Vlad knew that it was not so. He remembers this vibration very well. After that, something crawled out from under the ground. Throwing pieces of dirt and grass to the sides, it turned out to be a huge monster. Seeing it, the horses were even more frightened, as were the people who were nearby. In front of them was one of the remains of the fallen dragon, a death worm. Diving underground and jumping out from there again, it quickly approached the herd of horses and grabbed one of them with sharp teeth. Dorothea immediately realized that something was wrong here. Death worms are usually not carnivorous. The next sight surprised her very much. While it was dealing with the horses, she noticed some kind of crystal on its forehead, from which strange energy emanated. The black horse led his herd further, and one of the knights informed his master that they were heading straight for the pilgrims. The worm seemed to sense the vibrations from their stomping. It finished eating the horse and looked towards the pilgrims. Meanwhile, they began to run in panic, and the knights realized that the monster would now pursue them. Rudiger turned to Dorothea and asked what the death worm reacts to. She answered him in a panic that death worms have no eyes or ears. They are guided solely by vibrations of the earth. He ordered her to pull herself together immediately and come up with a plan to take this monster away. His scream brought her to her senses, and he called out to Vlad, ordering him to take Dorothea to a higher place and protect her. And when they found a way to distract the death worms, then let them give them a signal. He excitedly answered him that he understood everything, after which Rudiger raised his sword and ordered everyone to listen to him carefully. It doesn't matter if the situation they're facing makes sense. All that matters is that they have to be in their places and do what they have to do. It's their job as the count to protect the pilgrims. After saying that, he rushed towards the defenseless people and the knights ran after him. Rudiger thought that none of this made any sense at all, and that the situation was developing in a strange way. So there was something supernatural behind all of this. It was as if a fire had flared up inside him. His sword was on fire, and he was heading towards his opponent in a rage because he couldn't stand that they dared to do something like this on Bayezid territory. Meanwhile, MC had climbed higher, and Dorothea had panicked and poured her paint bottles onto the ground and was looking for something to vibrate, but she couldn't remember what color it was. Vlad didn't understand what it meant, and the voice said that it was some kind of divine secret. It was created by the Trinity, by adding divinity and aura. He was slightly surprised and realized why she was the Rudiger mage. While they were watching her, a bright pillar of flame suddenly flared up from the pilgrim's side, and they immediately turned around, excitedly asking what was that. The worm was enveloped in flames, and Portly exclaimed that this was the power of Master Rudiger. Seeing his fiery aura, MC was surprised. It was amazing for him. He was on a completely different level. The voice said that this was not enough. He was not ready. Despite the huge flame, the worm still managed to survive, and Rudiger gritted his teeth, thinking, "Is this the strongest of dragons?" The monster let out a piercing roar. Its mouth opened right above him, and he, hitting the horse on the sides, led it away before the worm dived underground would take them with it. It disappeared underground, and the knights asked Rudiger if he was okay, and he ordered them to stay vigilant. This worm will not be able to escape so easily. The voice noted that the situation was getting complicated. No matter how good a warrior he was not able to do anything against an underground enemy. Rudiger raised his sword and ordered his men to find it. It must be somewhere nearby. He turned around, wondering where this monster was, and then the knight anxiously pointed his finger towards the pilgrims. The death worm was heading towards them, leaving a trail behind him. Rudiger immediately rushed after it, and Vlad, seeing that the situation was getting complicated, called out to Dorothea and told her to hurry. But when he saw that she was drawing with her tail on a piece of paper, he looked at her strangely and asked, "Does she think now is a good time to play?" She exclaimed embarrassedly that she was not playing at all. It was a unique method of the beastman. If he had not bothered her, she would have everything ready by now. The symbol she drew lit up, and she handed the piece of paper to Portly to take to Rudiger. To use it, the paper must be rubbed or cut. Portly was surprised that she chose him as a messenger, and she exclaimed that the spell had completely exhausted her. She had trouble even walking yet. His friend could not even ride a horse, so who, if not him? The voice said that even if he could ride a horse, he would still be late. The deathworm moves much faster underground than on it. Rudiger's knights can't even catch up with it. MC realized that he had no other choice. He grabbed a piece of paper and rushed to the edge of the cliff, thinking that this was their last hope. Dorothea got very excited and asked what he was going to do. Seeing him jump, she called him crazy and exclaimed that it was almost a cliff. He jumped off the cliff, but luckily the slope was slightly inclined, so he could soften his fall. As his legs carried him down, he thought that Rudiger was competing with Joseph for the title of head of the family, and besides, his knights are the elite of Bayezid. Therefore, he, a vassal, does not necessarily have to do anything, but thoughts about this horse do not leave him. He remembers with his whole body what it feels like when your home is destroyed, and you cannot do anything about it. The voice noticed that he was lost in thought, and told him to concentrate. He needed to keep the strength in his legs. But because he was distracted, he tripped over a rock, and the voice let out a frightened sigh, and then Vlad found himself falling down. He no longer had control over his descent, and so he began to hit the rocks with his whole body. The Nameless One excitedly told him to group himself, and he, having somehow protected himself from the blows, began to fly down head over heels. Soon he landed. His fall was quite hard because he fell right on his chest. For a few seconds he did not move, and then he got up and wheezed painfully, and his friend, with tears in his eyes, exclaimed that he was moving. Dorothea looked down in shock and asked how it was possible to remain unharmed after falling from such a height. MC looked down at himself and said that he did not expect to be okay. He thought he would break a few bones. At that moment, a blue glow began to emanate from his chest, and the black horse felt something and turned around, looked at Vlad. This light fascinated the horse, and the voice meanwhile said that this was the blessing of the snake. Without it, he would have died. He said in surprise that this was incredible, and the Nameless One suggested that he go there later. Having risen, MC rushed to Rudiger and answered him that he was sure they would still have an opportunity, but for now he needed to move. He looked towards the pilgrims and noticed a familiar face among those pushing the cart. He immediately slowed down and remembered Priest Andreas. It was he who was now leading the pilgrims. He anxiously turned around to check where Rudiger was now, but his knights were very far away. The Worm of Death will get to the pilgrims first. So, the priest is in danger. He looked nervously at the spell, and the voice said that sometimes coincidence appears before them in the form of fate and forces them to make a decision. Vlad hissed a curse through his teeth, and when the death worm was very close, he realized that there was no time to think. He needed to act right now, and if so, he could not hesitate. He threw a piece of paper, pulled out his sword, and cut the spell, activating it. A glowing circle immediately appeared above his head, and magical writing began to circle nearby. The writing lay on his blade, and he, pointing the tip down, shouted to the worm that he was here. He thrust the sword into the ground. Everything was silent for a few seconds, and then a shockwave passed around, but the voice said that it was not enough. He needed to increase the vibration, enough for it to call his world. He closed one eye and concentrated, after which all the sounds around faded for a while. When he opened his second eye, a green-blue aura flashed, and he commanded the death worm to look at him. The monster felt the ground shake and headed towards the boy, who was emitting a bright light from himself. He gritted his teeth, putting in more effort, and then the death worm crawled out of the ground with a loud roar, and Rudiger and his subordinates became very nervous. MC confidently looked at his opponent, then grabbed the sword with both hands and prepared to fight. The death worm growled fearsomely and then charged straight at him, but he parried the blow, causing his legs to slide backwards. The voice ordered him not to even think about continuing the fight and to retreat. His world is not deep enough to face this monster yet. The fact that he is holding it back is enough. He glanced at the squad approaching them and answered him that he knows this, but they are not here yet. Meanwhile, the death worm rose higher and then opened its mouth wide and headed towards him. Vlad clenched his teeth, preparing to attack, and then the monster hit the ground with its head, but miraculously did not take him with it. He rolled on the ground in time, and seeing that the monster was going underground, he became very nervous. Quickly getting up, he began to carefully examine the area, preparing for a sudden attack from all sides. He turned around, already worried that it was heading towards the pilgrims, but the tremors that appeared under his feet said otherwise. The ground shook even more strongly, and then began to crack, and the Nameless One ordered him to dodge. But it was too late. The worm crawled out of the ground and MC fell into its mouth. The worm's mouth closed and Rudiger screamed Vlad's name in horror. Saliva flowed from the monster's mouth, and dust rose from its appearance. Soon, a silhouette of a man riding a horse appeared in this cloud of dust. They jumped out of the dust and headed towards the squad. Seeing this, Rudiger was very surprised. The black horse picked up Vlad in time and was now carrying him away from danger. He tried to clumsily stay on the horse and exclaimed in surprise that he was riding a horse. A voice told him to look at his forehead with his world, and he saw a white aura emanating from the horse, which grew into a horn. The voice exclaimed that this is a spirit. There's unicorn blood in it. The black horse sped up, and the wind hit MC in the face, and he smiled widely. He was so happy that he laughed. Now he understood what the world looks like on horseback. He looked at the neck of the horse that quickly carried him along the ground, and laughed again, shouting that it was amazing. A squad of knights approached him. Rudiger called out to him, and catching up with him, asked worriedly, "Is he okay?" He confirmed it, and he, looking at his sword, thought that he had cast an attraction spell on his blade. He can't believe that he exposed himself to a blow without hesitation. He looked at him with a slight smile and thought that he was a young vassal who was able to sacrifice himself for others and who had awakened the code of the Swordmaster with his whole being. He said that it was an amazing and brave decision. He had fulfilled his duty better than any knight. Vlad was a little embarrassed by such praise and thanked him. And then Rudiger asked how he thought he could handle it. They needed to kill this worm for the safety of the pilgrims, so they needed to start the fight. MC confusedly said that the death worm was a part of the fallen dragon, and then Rudiger confidently said that he could do anything. Meeting his steady gaze made him slightly nervous, and he reminded him that he had the mark of Dorothea, and he was riding this majestic horse now, so he would be able to lure this worm. Vlad looked at the horse, wondering if he would be able to stay on top, and he met his gaze and was slightly surprised. He understood everything. He was protecting his herd, just like him. Now he was sure that he would succeed and told Rudiger about it, and he immediately gave him the order. He needed to run around the hill and return to it. He would prepare on the other side. MC separated from the main group and ran to carry out the order. The squad moved aside, and he, making sure that the death worm was chasing him, suggested that the spirit speed up. The horse immediately rushed forward, sharply increasing the distance between them and the worm. And one of the knights asked in surprise, "What kind of acceleration was that?" Rudiger smiled, and noted that he was clearly not like everyone else. Vlad continued to run, and the voice advised him to lower his sword. He needed to show it that they were here, with the vibration of the mark. He followed his advice and lowered the sword, leaving a trace on the ground, and concentrated, putting more strength into the spell. The earth trembled, and he rushed forward with a loud cry. Now the worm was going right after his light. Rudiger, meanwhile, got off his horse and assigned a group of knights to take the pilgrims to a safe place, and ordered the rest to get ready just in case. Seeing that MC had already rounded the hill and the worm, breaking through the it passage, rushed after him, thinking that they were approaching. He closed one eye and concentrated on his inner world, imagined how the flames were enveloping him, and then hit his finger on the blade and his aura was activated. Meanwhile, Vlad continued to run towards him, but when he felt its energy, he looked up in surprise and asked, "What is this?" Rudiger stood surrounded by flames, and a voice said that he temporarily expanded his world. Only knights who deeply know themselves can do this. This means that Rudiger Bayezid is a much more unique knight than they thought. This sight impressed MC. In his eyes, Rudiger was so fierce that he could easily burn the whole world to ashes. The worm continued to chase him, but when Rudiger's energy reached it, it stopped, and Vlad turned around excitedly. The deathworm headed towards Rudiger, and the Nameless One cursed, exclaiming that the remnant of the dragon saw a threat in his world. MC became very nervous and thought that this could not continue. His world was too weak to attract his attention again. The black horse suddenly turned sharply, which frightened Vlad, and rushed towards the worm. It began to circle in one place, attracting the attention of the monster, and MC excitedly exclaimed that they were too close. The horse reared up, and Vlad, feeling a surge of energy, was very surprised. A horn grew on the head of the black horse, and a voice said that his world and the blessing of the white serpent resonated with it. A long-forgotten divine secret arose from the memories of this world. The worm immediately turned its attention to them, because the two of them glowed so brightly that they drowned out Rudiger's energy. Seeing the worm targeting them again, they darted to the side and ran towards the squad. Just like that, the hornless unicorn and the horseless knight met and became one. Now a white star appeared in the endless black night sky. The horse did not slow down. Rudiger already appeared on the horizon, preparing to attack and gathering strength. The voice said that this is not enough. His world is gradually becoming stronger. It is only a matter of time before the worm loses its attention. Feeling bad, MC gritted his teeth. He had already reached his limit and could not squeeze out more aura. Noticing that he was not coping, several knights joined him and told him not to give up. They all activated their aura, increasing the glow that attracted the worm, and the voice said that this is enough. One of the knights called out to Vlad and told him to continue in the same spirit and run past Master Rudiger. He agreed. They were quickly approaching Rudiger, and when they were very close, he excitedly called out to him, and he opened his eyes. The knights ran past him, and he praised them for their excellent work. And now it was his turn. The ground beneath his feet caught fire, and he told the worm that this was Bayezid territory, a land where his kind had no right to wreak havoc. He stood in a fighting stance, and a fiery hurricane arose above him. Then he swung his sword and told the worm to disappear, and a stream of flames headed for it. His blow was so strong that the flames engulfed the worm's entire body and even went much further. The pilgrims, Dorothea and Portly, were surprised by this sight, but the Rudiger knights smiled. MC looked at the flames blazing ahead in shock and thought, so this is the world of a knight, and with the ability to know himself, the true world? Such a sight is light years away from common sense. Watching the knight's world was like watching a mountain soar into infinity. Can Godin do that too? And Sir Jaeger and Sir Pablo? So he can do that too? The voice confirmed it. If his world was so unshakable, then nothing in the world could shake it. The worm burned away, leaving only ashes, and Vlad approached the resting Rudiger. He asked if he was okay, and he, looking clearly exhausted, said that he had done well. MC looked at it and asked if the meadows would burn like that. He told him that the grass was wet, so no, they would burn for a while and then everything would go out. Besides, he wanted a refreshing glass of beer. He tried to get up, but his legs trembled and he fell to the ground again, sighing heavily. The voice said that it seemed that he had paid the price for temporarily expanding his world. Rudiger smiled and extended his hand to Vlad, asking if he would help him up. He told him that he would rather sit down as well, and fell down next to him. Rudiger looked at his extended hand, feeling uneasy, having refused him again. He smirked and remarked that he was an excellent horseman, although there were rumors to the contrary. He told him that as far as he could see, it was not him. They both looked at the black horse, and Rudiger remarked that he was special. MC smiled and said that he knew it, and then suddenly someone hit him on the back of the head. The knights crowded around them, and the one who hit him said with delight that it was very cool, good enough for the one who had struck down their students. He praised him for his excellent work, and finally said that they would meet again. Vlad rubbed his bruised head with displeasure and thanked him hesitantly, and then an old voice called out to him. Priest Andreas approached him along with the pilgrims. He immediately jumped up from his seat and bowed his head in a respectful gesture before him, saying that he was glad that he was okay. The old man smiled and said that now everything was clear to him. He knew that he had seen this light before. He remembered how he had struck down that woman and exclaimed that it was the light that pierced the impenetrable darkness. He took his hand and knelt before him, begging him for their salvation, from which MC was very surprised and confused, not knowing how to react to this. Priest Andreas smiled and turned to his lord, asking him to look at the boy who had received his own will and was acting solely according to it. Let him hold the boy who protected his world and bless him with his pity and compassion. The rest of the pilgrims knelt down and joined in the prayer. And so today, countless hearts became one light and the boy's world became bigger. After some time at the Bayezid family palace, the count of the Bayezid family asked if he was 100% sure that this was true. Ragmas said that he was sure. Dorothea sent this message through the crystal ball. He got angry and said, while clenching his fist with the note that he sent them just in case, was this dark magic again? He noticed that some seemed to have settled in the north. The count of the Bayezid family thought that this was the weakness of the empire, so the old cursed creatures were gradually showing up outside. Ragmas asked, at least they had good news, right? He said that it was true. Lately, there have been more and more people hearing about this guy. The count of the Bayezid family thought that he participated in last year's winter monster hunt and also the honor duel at Heinel. Now he is also involved in the pilgrim incident. If it weren't for him, the Bayezid family might have been disgraced. This is truly admirable. Afterwards, he said that he wanted to see Joseph. He asked if he really wanted to give him permission. The count of the Bayezid family said with a smile that the worthy should enjoy what they deserve. After a while, in a night clearing where the caravan had set up camp, people gathered around the fires and only Vlad sat at a distance and sharpened his sword. The protagonist thought that this sword had also been through a lot. Rudiger asked why he was sitting here alone pitifully. The protagonist looked at him and asked where Fatty was now. He noticed, sitting down next to the fire, that Dorothea had taken him with her. She asked him to do something. Rudiger asked, "Where is Andreas now?" MC said that he was praying with the pilgrims. He exhaled and asked, "So everyone is busy? Doesn't he want to make some drinks?" Vlad noted that he was polishing his sword now. Rudiger noted that he was refusing again. He didn't take the peanuts from him. He didn't take his hand when he asked him to help him up. Come to think of it, he refuses him every time he extends his hand. Did Joseph ask him to do this? The protagonist's face changed, and he said, taking the bottle of drink, that it was not so at all. After the protagonist noted that it was whiskey, he said with a smile that it was a drink of aristocrats. MC thought with a smile, taking a sip from the bottle. After all, they were brothers. They may be different in character, but they had the same tastes. Rudiger noticed the blade and noted that he should inspect his sword upon his return. Vlad noted that he had been to the family blacksmith a few days ago. He said that the hilt of the sword needed to be changed. He asked why change the excellent hilt. The protagonist said that he said the connection was unreliable. The hilt of the sword should only be changed if he could not find the one who made the sword. Rudiger noted, taking a sip from the bottle, that the sword was planted, like its owner. The protagonist said that was why he refused. He didn't want to lose everything that the sword symbolized. He looked at it and said that the sword needed to be fixed anyway. It was already worn out. The MC said that he agreed with that, so he had to find the person who forged the sword. Rudiger asked, where is he now? Vlad thought about it and then said that he was in Sora. He noted that it was natural. He was always shouting that he was Vlad of Sora. Rudiger thought with a smile that Sora usually represented shine, and he was Vlad of Sora. It was a fitting nickname for him, because today he was shining brighter than anyone, so that was the reason why his brother was running around. He stood up and asked, will he fix the sword soon, right? If he hoped desperately, sooner or later someone would let him know where the right person was. The protagonist looked at him, puzzled. After which Rudiger said, putting his hand on his shoulder, that he wanted to say that he would do well, having lived until now. He did not need to sit by the fire for long. Tomorrow they would go straight to Sturma. The protagonist looked at him and thought that he was right. One day he would definitely be able to fix this sword, because he had somewhere to return with it. At this time, Noir was closely watching MC from a height. The animal seemed to sense his powerful aura. Sometime later in the estate, Oksana was doing embroidery and asked, is it enough? Does it look like the emblem of the Heinel family? The maid said with a smile that the countess did very well. It is identical to the one in the book. She asked, does that mean she needs to move on to the next emblem? She opened the necessary page in the book. Oksana said with a smile, closing her eyes, that she did not need to show it. She clearly remembers this emblem. By the way, she is doing this for the first time. As a child, she had only watched her mother do it. The maid asked with a smile, but that made it even more valuable, didn't it? She said, looking at the needle in her fingers, that it was true. After all, it was a forgotten tradition. However, the knights of today are so reverently brought up that they are worthy of raising this banner. They are worthy of the banner that belongs only to them and to no one else. The next morning, the caravan set off. The knight said in surprise that it was a wonderful sight. He had never seen anything like it before. He could not believe that people and horses could gallop together harmoniously. Rudiger noted that he was right, it was a rare sight. This may be the first and last time this happens. He thought that most likely, after such a short acquaintance, they were more special to each other than anyone else. The protagonist thought, looking at Noir, that he knew it was time for them to part ways now. Because he has a purpose, and he has a duty to his herd. Noir stopped grandly at the top of the hill. They looked into each other's eyes. The protagonist thought that they could only be together for so long. MC said that he was saying goodbye to him. Andreas said that he did not need to be considered because of this goodbye. Vlad said with a smile that he just said so. He said with a laugh that it is difficult for people to be sincere. Their life is just a cycle of greetings and farewells. Farewells give tears, and greetings give smiles. It was a delightful meeting even from his point of view. I wonder when they will meet again? After all, the depth of a connection is not determined by the time spent together alone. The protagonist thought with a smile that he was right. One day they will meet again. It will definitely happen. Sometime later, in the palace of the Bayezid family, the Count of the Bayezid family said sadly that he was informed of the fall of the Ravnoma family. Ragmas said that it was so. They received urgent news about this. He thought that there had been strange activity in the west all this time. Who would have thought that it would end like this? The Count of the Bayezid family asked if Count Gaddar was really that strong. He said that it seemed that the western houses had formed an alliance with Gaidar at their head. It seemed that even Ravnoma, the ruler of the west, had lost due to a lack of men. He asked why the imperial family had not done anything. Ragmas said that they knew nothing about the affairs of the capital. The Count of the Bayezid family stood up and said that he understood. He thought that the north had its own unique strength, greater than any other region. They were freed from the influence of the imperial family and the authorities of the central part of the country, thanks to the impenetrable wall they had built. Therefore, there was nothing to do but ignore the events in other regions. The Count of the Bayezid family said, looking out the window at the rain, that he could not believe that the house of the lord of the region had fallen so easily. And it's not about an ordinary family, but about the protectors of the pact. He thought that the old rules and traditions had lost their meaning because the rulers had changed. The Count of the Bayezid family said that troubled times had come. Ragmus said that he was right. No matter how weak the empire was, there had to be a limit. He thought that the fall of the Ravnoma Count's family could mark a new era. Afterwards, the Count of the Bayezid family noticed the people on the street and said that it was a curse. They turned out to be pilgrims and fugitives from Ravnoma with the old pact. After a while, the protagonist thought with an irritated face, what should he do? He had to save the pilgrims, but in the end he helped Rudiger. Joseph will be unhappy. The protagonist imagined his angry face and thought, with a change in his face, that perhaps Jaeger would even beat him to death. Although he could not fix anything now. MC knocked on the door and said that he had come. Joseph said that he could come in. Vlad carefully walked inside and noticed that he had returned a day early. The protagonist said that this was just the way things were. Joseph said that he had heard the general outline of what had happened to him. Was he okay? The protagonist said that he was unharmed. He said that was good. However, he should still take care of himself. The MC said that he would try. Vlad thought, is everything okay? He seemed to be acting like usual. Vlad saw the frightening atmosphere and thought that he was finished. He was definitely upset. Joseph said that the report had talked about Sora. You should understand, he didn't know much about the slums. The protagonist looked at him, puzzled. He noted that he had heard that conflicts between factions cease when all members of one faction die or submit. Is that true? The protagonist wondered why he suddenly decided to ask about this. MC hesitantly said that it was probably so. Joseph asked, did he say that he couldn't send letters? Vlad asked what he meant. He said that it was about his beloved in the monastery. The protagonist's face changed, and he said that they were just friends. Joseph said that it didn't matter, he didn't know about it until now. He was talking about the fact that he couldn't send letters to Sora for fear that someone might get hurt there. He wanted to be considerate, but solving the problem took time and effort. The man named One-Armed Jack was also useful in his own way. The protagonist thought that maybe that was true. After all, this swindler had many connections among the powerful people of Sora thanks to his huge capital. He noted that, however, he had tried hard to prove his worth. He had tried so hard for him, so he, in turn, should repay him accordingly. MC looked at him, puzzled. Joseph said that it was a banner that represented someone's honor. In his grandfather's time, knights walked with such banners. He thought that this was something he would never have, so he appointed a knight to carry it. And Vlad happily took the banner with both hands. Joseph said that he deserved to carry his own banner, and the Bayezid family would guarantee it. From this day on, he would have the full support of the Bayezid family. The man who received the recognition of Lady Alicia, and the vassal of the Bayezid family, Vlad. He should proudly hold his head high under his own banner. He should take this and go to his homeland. He can go and destroy the people who prevent him from finding true freedom and returning back. The protagonist barely held back his emotions from crying. The protagonist had an unadorned sword given to him by a girl and an old man, a name confirmed by a priest, a handkerchief with the name of a noble lady, and even a banner with family crests. All this gave the boy a foundation, and he deserved it all. MC got down on one knee and said with tears in his eyes that he would fulfill the order of my lord. After some time in the hall, the Count of the Bayezid family asked, so this is it? Andreas said that it really is the proof of the pact. Inside is a fragment of a dragon, the first dragon of perfection, defeated by the founding king. He said that he was sorry to say this, but the family of the Count of Ravnoma was the only one in the West capable of protecting this pact. He said that he understood this. He would provide them with his knights. He would help them carry the proof of the pact, in the safety that only he could ensure. He politely asked to be their guests while preparations were underway. The priest thanked the Count. The pilgrims picked up the proof of the pact and began to carry it out of the hall. The Count of the Bayezid family thought about it, and then Ragmus said that he had nothing to worry about. They had no choice anyway. He said, standing up, that he knew it. From the Western point of view, the only house equal to them, capable of protecting the pact, was the ruler of the North, Steel Lord, Timur Baranov. The Count of the Bayezid family thought that he knew that there was nothing to be done about it, but it did not make him feel any better. Then he remarked that he had not seen such a banner for a long time. Ragmus asked what he was talking about. Then he said, looking out the window, that now he understood. He had not seen such a thing for a long time either. The Count of the Bayezid family said that he needed to rest a little before leaving. Ragmus remarked that he was probably very eager to leave as soon as possible. He thought it was true. He would have been impatient too in his place. A knight who is his own master. He must go home and do his duty. After a while, in the dark corners of the city, people in the establishment, Cat House, shouted, when will she come out? They want her to play with them, although it is up to the one with more money to decide. They called her name loudly. Marcella was putting her makeup on, looking at her reflection in the mirror. The old lady said that they were looking at her with perverted eyes. She should go out if she was ready. She should work harder to pay off her debt. She calmly continued to put her makeup on her face. The madam of the cat house said, grabbing her chin with her hand, that she wondered how long she would walk around with such a self-confident face. They had plenty of time, and she would be here even if her body began to rot. Marcella smiled and said, calling her madame, that she wished her a long life. The old lady thought that she was a fool. Even after everything that had happened, she was still the same. She said that she should get ready and go out already. She thought, posing in front of the mirror, that she had risen quite well for someone who worked in a cat house. Marcella said with a smile that it was still wonderful. She thought that at least she was choosing her fate, although not everything suited her. The people shouted admiringly that they had been waiting for her. Marcella thought that this was the way to a solution. The madam of the cat house said that they had been waiting for a long time. They needed to show their gold coins who wanted to be with her. They shouted furiously, offering more and more gold coins. Some decided to join forces to offer more gold, although they were not sure if this was allowed. The old lady looked at the girl and thought that this was delightful. This withering flower would surely make good golden honey, and she would gradually take it for herself. The man shouted that he was offering 4 gold coins. She noted with a smile that finally a decent price. The people asked irritably, did he really have that many gold coins? They thought that 5 gold coins was already too much. One could live on that amount for a whole month. Suddenly, an unknown voice said that he was offering 100 gold coins. They all froze in shock, and then turned to look at him. The old lady's face changed and asked if she had misheard. He repeated, going up the stairs, that he was willing to pay 100 gold coins. Marcella thought in horror that she knew that sound. That was the sound that had brought destruction to her home. That was the reason she was here. A stranger in a cloak and hiding his face with a hood appeared before the crowd of people. The madam of the cat house asked if he had said 100 gold coins for sure. The protagonist came closer, while the people thought in shock. Who was he? He had an oppressive aura. The protagonist approached the bartender's counter and asked if he could make an order. The old lady thought that he was wearing expensive clothes. Even if he didn't have 100 gold coins with him, he could definitely pay 10 gold coins. The madam of the cat house wanted to offer him a menu, but MC stopped her with a hand gesture. Vlad said he didn't need it. Even after he left that place, he always missed that place. The protagonist said he would have fried sausages and black pudding, as well as hash browns and white bread. The protagonist took off his hood and said that it was Georges' usual order. Marcella covered her face with her hands, barely holding back her tears. MC thought, remembering the past, that this gold is not from a dirty cat house. It is the color of how Jorge brought him home, and how Marcella washed him as a child. This is the color of what the boy had gained then. Vlad said, turning to Marcella, that he had returned. The protagonist thought it was shining gold. She cried, looking at his face. Then Marcella whispered, her face changing, that he should run away from here as soon as possible. The henchmen of the one-armed Jack are here. The madam of the cat house was watching them and thought, do they really know each other? Apparently, everything is very serious. She needed to put an end to this before anything happened. She gave a special hand signal to her minions. People got up from the table and came closer, standing behind him. Marcella was shaking with fear. The protagonist calmly noted that he needed to settle the bill before paying. The old lady asked what bill they were talking about. To her surprise, MC said it was about the one-armed Jack. Vlad menacingly stated that he needed to take something from him. The minions said, preparing for battle, that he was ridiculous. He was just an idiot. How dare he pronounce the boss's name so casually? Suddenly, the protagonist struck down the most talkative enemy with one precise blow of his dagger. His body fell to the floor with a crash, and the others froze in shock. Then the cat house madam screamed in horror. The protagonist said threateningly that she needed to be quieter. She should shut up and wait where she was, because these scum wouldn't be enough. He would need something from her too. The old lady trembled in fear, looking at his furious gaze. Then the henchmen shouted, grabbing their swords, how dare he do such a thing? Who the hell is he? Who sent him here? MC prepared for battle and declared that he was here because of Jorge. He is Jorge's last blade. They asked in confusion, what is he talking about? Then they shouted that they remembered the blonde with blue eyes. This scum is Vlad. They began to discuss among themselves, how is this possible? Hasn't he died a long time ago? Although what difference does it make now? They can get a reward for him now. The boss will pay handsomely for this. If he has survived until now, he is unlikely to just give up now. However, he is looking for his own death. The protagonist stepped forward, that it was time for them to stop chatting and already approach him. How was it then to kill him? They looked at him in fear and thought, what is this? Is it really him? He is like a bloodthirsty wolf. The The protagonist noted, rushing forward and crushing the opponent, that if they were to stand still, he would come himself. Afterwards, the enemy screamed furiously, intending to hit him from behind, and MC reacted lightning fast, crushing him. Vlad thought, while destroying his enemies, that one of his blows is one scream of the enemy, and that is one life. He will not let any of them leave here alive until they pay with their blood. Marcella watched the battle in horror, covering her face with her hands. The protagonist thought, fighting furiously, that this was revenge for Marcella's tears. After a while, Jack was enjoying a drink, sitting in a chair. He thought that after Jorge disappeared, the slums of Sora practically became his. He plans to become even stronger. He wouldn't stop there, so he stole without hesitation. He walked over the corpses of his enemies, climbing higher and higher. However, only at the end did he realize that life in the slums was mainly ruled by aristocrats. Jack took a sip and said that he cursed such a life. He thought that before he stubbornly believed that everything could only be obtained by winning. However, now here he was, despite the defeat. Jorge was the winner and died. One day, the same thing would happen to him. A few words from someone higher in status would decide his fate. Jack said that he hated this life. At that moment, a subordinate opened the door and shouted that they were in trouble. Jack asked why he was making noise. He shouted that they were surrounded. He asked who did it and where exactly. They shouted in panic that the entire slums were surrounded. They were surrounded by soldiers from all sides. They were serious. There were many soldiers even in the backyard. They were the guards of Sora. They began to argue loudly. Why would they do this? They had paid for months in advance. They had no idea what was going on. Maybe they were just patrolling? Although there were too many of them for a regular patrol. Jack chuckled and thought that he had known this day would come soon. But why today? Although this was even better. He thought with an evil smile that after all, when everything was collapsing before his eyes, it was better than worrying from ignorance. After a while, the protagonist defeated his enemies, rage emanating from him, and his eyes sparkled in the darkness. After that, the soldier reported that they had been informed that the guards had carried out the order. Borden asked, were all the alleys blocked? The mayor of Sora said with excitement, which was natural. They did everything in their power. He asked, then why did he let this happen? He was talking about what the Count found out. He said that he did not deserve forgiveness. One-Armed Jack was a talented man. That's why he did it. Borden coughed, hinting to him that he should keep quiet. The mayor thought, who is this? How can some knight be so aware of the situation in the Sora slums? He said with a smile that he was glad that they were here. Now the criminal organization would be destroyed. His face changed and he thought that he was no better than them. How can some slum boss run such an organization? He runs it, justifying himself with his position as mayor. And it is obvious that it is about big money. As you can see, those who eat meat, those who take bribes also stand out. This immediately catches the eye. The mayor worriedly asked, who will go inside? Borden said that the Bayezid family specially sent a knight here, and he is already here, right there. At that moment, the protagonist came out of the room, and the mayor asked in surprise, was he there alone? Would nothing happen to him? He gathered all the guards of Sora. It is better to entrust this to them. He declared that this will not happen. He asked why he is against it. Borden thought that the reason was that Joseph put all his efforts into it. This is Vlad's official debut. After which he whispered, is he sure he can handle it? Should he take soldiers with him? He heard there were more than 50 people there. If he got hurt, he wouldn't be able to see Joseph. The protagonist whispered that even if he got hurt, he would make sure he wasn't punished for it. Bogdan quietly noted that he said he couldn't let that happen. The MC looked at the building, and his eyes flashed with anger. He sighed heavily and asked, he would keep his word, right? Joseph asked to convey this to him in front of everyone. Now they can begin, Vlad said, taking the banner that he understood. After which the protagonist powerfully planted his banner in front of the soldiers, and they asked, is this really a banner? They thought that everyone had forgotten about this tradition. Who is he? How did he get the banner at such a young age? They say that the Count of the Bayezid family personally sent this knight. The protagonist thought that this was his territory now. Under the honorable names that recognized him, he would rule, even over their lives. Borden shouted that this was an appeal to the scum of the slums. One-Armed Jack especially should hear. He had broken the rules and law of the Bayezid family and taken people's lives. Therefore, he, Count Peter, the head of the Bayezid family, the rightful owner of Sora, would no longer tolerate his sins and sent a proxy. All the rights he possessed were guaranteed by him and the Church of Faith. One-Armed Jack and his henchmen must immediately open the door and let his proxy in. The soldiers shouted the name Bayezid. The henchmen looked at them tensely. They shouted that God save the messenger. He must kill One-Armed Jack. Then Borden noted that now he had the right and the people. He could act without hesitation. Vlad said, grabbing the hilt of his sword with his hand, that he was grateful to him. He asked him to be careful there. The protagonist said that of course he would be careful. A voice came from the sword, saying that it was probably getting ready. He had to expand his field of vision. It could come from anywhere. This fight would be completely different from all the ones he had been in so far. One of the basics of the fight was to take the initiative. Simply put, he needed to start unusually. The protagonist used his abilities and thought that if he hadn't brought Godin back then, would Georges be alive today? Or if the one-armed Jack hadn't threatened Georges, maybe he wouldn't have had to call Godin. He was haunted by many thoughts about how the situations could have turned out in the past. In the end, one thing came out. He had to kill the one-armed Jack. MC struck a powerful blow with his sword. A bright light appeared, blinding the henchmen in the building. They screamed in pain, and Vlad thought that Jack's world was devouring him, so he had to put an end to it here and now. Cut off this chaotic connection and start moving forward.